Chapter 431. Just as she walked out of the Crown Prince Palace, Yiqing Luo saw Yi Fengyu, who was twitching uneasily not too far away. Her heart warmed, and a warm smile appeared on her face as she walked towards him. Sister. The moment Yi Fengyu saw Yiqing Luo, his eyes lit up and immediately trotted forward to grab her hand. Are you all right? Are you okay? His eyes were filled with worry as he anxiously pulled Yiqing Luo to check if she was injured. Yiqing Luo's eyes were filled with smiles. You don't trust me that much? Listening to her relaxed tone, Yi Fengyu's heart that was hanging in his throat finally calmed down. His Highness the Crown Prince was definitely up to no good by asking his sister for a gathering. Although Big Sister is powerful, there are so many experts in the Crown Prince Palace. Big Sister will be at a disadvantage if she is alone. No matter how he thought about it, Yi Fengyu was still worried, so he simply followed them. If Yiqing Luo was a little later, he would definitely barge into the Crown Prince Palace. Xiaoyu, I have a mission for you. A crafty smile surfaced on Yiqing Luo's charming eyes as she leaned close to Yi Fengyu's ear. Go to Second Prince's residence and tell him to bring along some pedantic old ministers who have a say in the palace to the Crown Prince's garden. I prepared a big gift for him. When Yiqing Luo returned to Three Springs Sect, Second Madam and a bunch of maids were standing at the entrance. Seeing Yiqing Luo, Second Madam's well-manicured brows knitted tightly. Where's Qian? Today was the Academy's holiday, and in order to reflect the independence of the Three Springs Sect's children, Old Madam had forbidden her to fetch Yiqing Qian from the Academy. Second Madam had prepared pastries early in the morning and led a group of maids to wait for Yiqing Qian at the door. They had already waited for 4 hours, and there was no sign of Yiqing Qian. He had not expected Yiqing Luo, this slut, to come back first. You're looking for eldest sister? Yiqing Luo raised her brows as her lips curled into a strange smile. Eldest sister has been picked up by the Crown Prince. On hearing that it was Lung Fenghua who had fetched Yiqing Qian, Second Madam's worried heart was finally relieved. But when he saw the smile on Yiqing Luo's face, he suddenly felt a little strange. But he couldn't tell what was strange about it. The one who brought Yiqing Qian away was Lung Fenghua. Perhaps this little slut saw that her own fiancé had brought away another lady and was suppressing her anger. With this thought, the Second Madam did not think too much about it. She called for a group of maids and returned to the mansion, swaying her hips. Yiqing Luo sneered as her eyes were filled with ridicule. Now, he should be happy. Later, there would be plenty of places to cry. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes and entered the Three Springs Sect. She didn't follow the rules and report to Old Grand Madam first, but went straight back to her own courtyard. Not long after, Yi Fengyu returned. The things which Yiqing Luo had instructed, he had already completed them. When I first said this, the second prince didn't believe me. But when I said Big Sister's name, he immediately believed me. Yi Fengyu frowned in confusion. Could it be that Big Sister knows the second prince? I don't know him. Yiqing Luo raised her arm and rubbed Yi Fengyu's head. He trusts me, which proves that he is a smart man. Compared to Lung Fenghua, he is more suitable to be the crown prince. Hearing this, Yi Fengyu's expression immediately changed. Be the crown prince? Could it be that Big Sister wants to let the second prince replace the crown prince? He totally didn't expect that he was just running an errand to pass a message, and it could affect the change of the crown prince's position. Don't worry about other things, just watch the show. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes, reflecting a meaningful cold arc. Chapter 432. The news of the siblings' return to the mansion reached the elder ancestors' ears immediately. However, the two siblings stayed in the courtyard and had no intention of coming to see her. Second Madam Yuqi whispered in her ear. Yiqing Luo totally didn't put Old Madam in her heart and even instigated the usually obedient Yi Fengyu to not put Old Madam in his eyes. Old Grand Madam was most concerned about the younger generation's respect towards her, so she immediately called for the old maid to bring Yiqing Luo and her brother over. Yiqing Luo led Yi Fengyu to the main hall and saw Old Grand Madam sitting on the soft chair, knocking on the wooden fish. Madame Yuchi stood respectfully at the side, looking submissive. It seemed that Madame Yuchi's authority as the mistress of the household had not returned to her. Old 7 and Old 8 are back. Old Ancestor squinted his eyes like a soft snake, giving off a cold glow. Yi Fengyu reflexively straightened his back and bowed slightly towards the Elder Ancestor. Yes, Elder Ancestor. Yuer has returned. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased slightly as she stood by the side, not saying a single word. Number 7, I heard that your eldest sister had been taken away by the Crown Prince. Old Grandmadam didn't probe deeply into Yiqing Luo's attitude, but instead found a topic to talk about. Yiqing Luo raised her eyebrows. I thought I'd already made it very clear to Second Aunt. Madame Yuchi's face paled slightly as she hid behind Elder Ancestor. She's just a young lady. She's not even married yet, and she's already so close to His Highness the Crown Prince. If other people hear about this, they'll only laugh at Three Springs Sect for not knowing how to educate young ladies. Grand Elder's face darkened slightly as he turned to glare at Madame Yuchi. Madame Yuchi's body trembled and she lowered her head, looking like she was humbly being scolded. Yiqing Luo sneered in her heart when she heard that. This old ancestor was indeed a smart person. He's pretty good at playing dumb. Knowing that currently, Lung Fenghua was Yiqing Luo's fiancée on the surface. However, the old ancestor did not mention a single word about it. Come to think of it, old Grandmadam was still hoping that Yiqing Qian would be able to tie Lung Fenghua up so that she could secure the position of Crown Prince's imperial concubine. Look how kind and filial she is. Knowing the old ancestor's plan, he purposely added fuel to the fire. It wouldn't be long before Yiqing Qian would be able to marry Lung Fenghua as she wished, fulfilling the Yi family's long-cherished dream. Old 7th you too, why didn't you persuade your eldest sister a little more? Old Grandmadam brought the topic back to Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo's lips twitched with a smile that didn't look like a smile. When eldest sister and Crown Prince are deeply in love, how can I stop them if I go and persuade them? The old ancestor was embarrassed, and his face turned red as he choked. She had totally not expected Yiqing Luo to put it so bluntly in front of her. But on seeing Yiqing Luo's calm expression towards the matter of Lung Fenghua and Yiqing Qian being together, her heart faintly heaved a sigh of relief. She had been feeling uneasy ever since her 7th brother left under the protection of His Majesty, the Overlord. She had lived for most of her life. How could she not understand that Di Zun was trying to build support for her 7th brother? He had used his actions to show that he, the Overlord, would stand by old 7th's side and be his backer. Who was Di Zun? He was a legendary figure that was famous throughout the entire Nirvana realm. He had the #1 powerhouse, the Imperial Palace, as his backing, and he himself was so powerful that there was no opponent in the world who dared to go against him. Today, Di Zun wanted to protect Yiqing Luo. When old Grandmadam faced Yiqing Luo, she naturally could not throw her face away like in the past. Chapter 433. A lady who had been touched by the Crown Prince. No matter where she went, no one dared to accept her. Moreover, based on Yiqing Luo's character, if she became the Crown Prince's concubine, she would absolutely not allow Yiqing Qian to become Lung Fenghua's concubine, to put on a show of 2 sisters serving one husband. Old Madam was extremely curious. What was the relationship between Yiqing Luo and the Overlord? From the looks of it, it really didn't seem like a simple master-disciple relationship. If she was able to get close to the Overlord, then Three Springs Sect would completely have the hope of turning the tables. Yiqing Luo merely shot a glance at old Madam and had already guessed most of what she was thinking in her heart. She sneered as she tugged Yi Fengyu's arm and walked toward the armchair. Without waiting for old Madam to say anything, she sat down directly. Such a disrespectful attitude made old Madam's face sunk as her brows creased and her expression was filled with disgust. This disgust disappeared in a flash. Following that, old Madam's voice turned gentle as she gave an amiable smile. It's been hard on you during this period of time in the academy. In the past, when eldest and second brother came back from the academy, they would need to nourish their bodies for several days. In a while, Grandma will get the maids to bring some nourishing soup for you and her brother. No need. Yiqing Luo rejected without any hesitation. It's rare for us to have a holiday. I've already promised a few students that for the 3 days of holiday, I will bring Xiao Yu and the rest to have fun outside. Old Madam's amiable expression could no longer be maintained. That pair of slender eyes revealed a thick gloominess. This lass seemed to have grown some ability. Did she think that just because she had the overlord, she could be lawless? He didn't even put him in his eyes. Madame Yuchi saw that the atmosphere had turned gloomy and old Madame's expression turned uglier. She was both happy and apprehensive. What made them happy was that old Grandmadam didn't treat Yiqing Luo as a treasure just because she had a much stronger ability than Yiqing Qian, nor because she had the backing of the overlord. But she was apprehensive and worried that old Grandmadam would vent the anger which she was unable to vent on Yiqing Luo on her. She deliberated over her words for a long time before saying, Miss Qi is still young and a child loves to play. It's rare for her to have a holiday. Since Miss Qi has an appointment with her classmates, let her go. The old ancestor's deep gaze moved towards Madame Yuchi. Madame Yuchi shuddered at the sight of those sinister, snake-like eyes. Fortunately, although the old ancestor's gaze was cold, he didn't say anything else. He was extremely satisfied with Madame Yuchi's words that broke the deadlock. Old Madame nodded her head slightly as her gaze stared straight at Yiqing Luo. What Madame Yuchi said is right. This 3 days holiday, Grandma will allow you to meet up with your classmates, but the next holiday, you'll have to leave some time for Grandma. If there's a next time, I'll try my best. Yiqing Luo's lips curled up as she scoffed disapprovingly. The frivolous and perfunctory attitude made the wrinkled muscles on the old ancestor's face tremble. She forcefully suppressed the anger in her heart. More and more, she felt that this granddaughter of hers was simply uncontrollable. Madame Yuchi continued to smooth things over as she changed the topic. Speaking of classmates, Miss Qi, 8th young master, you haven't told old Madame which class you've entered? She paused for a moment as she gave a fawning smile, but her tone was filled with resentment. Miss Qi's performance in the ability assessment was so outstanding, so you must have been allocated to the high profound class, right? Devil class. Low profound class, second class. The two of them replied at the same time. Chapter 434. Low profound class. Madame Yuchi's eyes widened in disbelief, filled with astonishment. 8th young master, based on your aptitude, even if you can't enter the high profound class, you should at least be able to enter the intermediate profound class. Why are you in the low profound class? Because the previous two were Yiqing Qian and Yi Fengru, who had directly entered the high profound class. In their minds, the low profound class was the lowest class. I feel that the low profound class is very good. Yi Fengyu was roared at and stared at by old Madame's eerie gaze. He felt a chill down his spine as he lowered his head and muttered, I can learn more in the low profound class. I'm the one who asked him to go to the low profound class. Yiqing Luo interrupted Yi Fengyu's words in a calm voice. Previously, the academy that little Yu attended had completely wasted him. He needs to consolidate his own foundation, and the low profound class is the best place to train his foundation. The reason why she explained was purely because she didn't want to see Madame Yuchi's smirk under the shock and agitate Yi Fengyu. For a child of Yi Fengyu's age, his soul was the most fragile, and he liked to indulge in flights of fancy. If he really thought that the low profound class was the most useless class under Madame Yuchi's hint, it would possibly strike Yi Fengyu's intention to consolidate his foundation. However, this explanation, in the ears of old Madame and Madame Yuchi, was an extremely far-fetched excuse. Heavenly Academy's class allocation. How could she just say which class she wanted to go to? Wait, this devil class. What's going on? Old Madame squinted her eyes as she looked at Yiqing Luo in astonishment. She had heard of Yiqing Luo's performance during the assessment. She broke the record set by a genius cultivator a few hundred years ago, which was 24 hours. Yiqing Luo had set a new record, which was 1 hour. 24 hours and 1 hour. This contrast was so obvious. After that, during the ability assessment, she shone brilliantly. This kind of result, how could she be allocated to the devil class, the class that was synonymous with waste? You still want to go out and play with those waste in the devil class? Old Madam's face was ashen as the wooden fish in her hand broke with a bang. Old Madam hated waste the most in her entire life. Although she hated Yiqing Luo, but Yiqing Luo still represented the Three Springs sect. He actually entered the devil class? If this was spread out, how would others mock the devil class? The more the old ancestor thought about it, the more he could not conceal the anger on his face. No wonder Yiqing Luo didn't think of making progress and still wanted to go on holiday. He had been led astray by those trash. Tomorrow, I will go to the elder quarters to have a good chat. Devil class, you must not stay here any longer. Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes as her lips curled into a smile which didn't look like a smile. Whether the devil class is trash or not, whether I stay in the devil class or not, it has nothing to do with old ancestor. You, most importantly, ancestor, the times are different now. Your words are no longer the same as they were back then. If the Heavenly Academy can be easily persuaded, then it's not worthy of being called the best academy. Old Grand Madam's expression was a mix of green and red. Although what Yiqing Luo said was indeed the truth. But for a junior to say this in front of her face, her old face couldn't take it. Seventh young mistress. What are you saying? Madame Yuchi saw that old Madam was angry and immediately went forward as she gently caressed old Madam's chest and passed her some tea as she turned her head to look at Yiqing Luo. Old Madam is concerned about you and thinking of your future. If you're not willing, then so be it. Why must you use words to stab old Madam? Old Madam drank a mouthful of tea as she calmed her anger down. A pair of malicious eyes stared coldly at Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo's lips curled up slightly as she calculated the time. The real show was about to start. She stood up as she gave an extremely elegant smile. If you have the time to care about me, why don't you care more about that eldest young missy who brings glory to the clan? Chapter 435. What rubbish are you sprouting? Old Madam is fine here. How is it not good? Madame Yuchi's brows creased as her heartbeat sped up. Not knowing why, there was an ominous premonition spreading in her heart. She took a look at old Madam and strode forward as she lifted that follower and gave him 2 tight slaps. That follower cried out in pain as he held his cheek. It's not that old Madam is not good, it's eldest young miss. What did you say? On hearing that it was Yiqing Qian, Madame Yuchi's expression suddenly congealed as she tugged the follower's collar. What did you say? What happened to Qian? The follower was so frightened that he trembled. Eldest young miss. Eldest young miss was carried back by the royal family's men. Crown Prince was carried by the side, and Eunuch Chong. Eunuch Chong received the imperial edict. Madame Yuchi's face turned pale as she staggered backwards. Her mind was filled with the words of her daughter being carried back. Old Madam was still considered calm, but the expression on her face was filled with viciousness. A pair of icy-cold eagle eyes looked at Yiqing Luo, as though she was suspecting if this matter was caused by her. Yiqing Luo's lips twitched as she looked at her calmly, with a, "I don't know what's the situation" expression. Old Madam stood up in doubt as she stared at Madame Yuchi, who seemed as though she had lost her soul. "Useless fellow, quickly help me out to receive the imperial edict." Madame Yuchi seemed as though she had just awoken from a dream as she hurriedly supported old Madam as the two of them hurriedly walked out of the main hall to receive the imperial edict. Sister, surely it can't be. Yi Fengyu had participated in this matter previously, and when he heard Yiqing Qian being carried back, his expression changed slightly. You could just pretend that you don't know anything. Yiqing Luo raised her finger as she placed it on her brother's mouth. Your sister, is helping the Yi family to realize a beautiful dream. Indeed, it was realizing a dream. But this dream wasn't beautiful at all. As what Yiqing Luo had expected, It was exactly the same. In the Crown Prince Palace, the aphrodisiac which Lung Fenghua wanted to use on Yiqing Luo was multiplied by several times and made Lung Fenghua drink it himself. The moment he touched a woman, he was like a ferocious beast. How could he stop? Yiqing Luo's kick had specially sent Lung Fenghua to where Yiqing Qian was hiding. Everything that happened after that happened naturally. In the first place, there was no brotherly love between the royal family because of the power struggle. The second prince had long wanted to find a chance to get rid of Lung Fenghua and replace him. Now that he heard that Yiqing Luo had prepared a huge gift for him, he found the best excuse right now. Crown Prince as the Crown Prince, he should set an example and not provoke Yiqing Qian while maintaining the engagement with Yiqing Luo. These pedantic old ministers had long been displeased with Lung Fenghua and Yiqing Qian's matter. Now that the second prince had taken the lead, he was naturally happy to go. In his heart, he felt that the second prince was a reasonable person who valued brotherhood. Thus, with the second prince leading the three old ministers, they majestically made their way to the Crown Prince Palace. After seeing the group of people coming, the two gatekeepers fell to the ground on the spot. Seeing this situation, the few old ministers realized that something was amiss and immediately broke the door open. In the entire Crown Prince Palace, not a single sound was heard and not a single attendant or maid was seen. Second Prince had long received Yi Fengyu's instructions and intentionally led the three old ministers to the garden. After that, the entire garden was set up with a long table. The delicacies on the table were scattered all over the ground, whereas in everyone's ears, they could obviously hear that man's rough growl and panting which made one blush. Chapter 436. When she heard the voice, the lady who was lying on the ground, covered in bruises, stretched out her hands and kept shouting, "Help! Help!" That voice was hoarse. Apparently she had been shouting for a long time, and her throat was sore. This scene completely stunned the few of them, especially the three old ministers. They were originally pedantic, and their thinking was old-fashioned. Now that they saw Lung Fenghua doing that improper thing in the garden in broad daylight, they were so infuriated that they started to tremble. Second Prince heard the old official scolding him nonstop and finally understood what Yiqing Luo was referring to when she mentioned about the huge gift. This big gift, he was very satisfied. Luckily, when he invited the three old ministers, the excuse he used was precisely about Lung Fenghua and Yiqing Qian's matter. Coincidentally, they bumped into each other. Second Prince smelled the blood in his nose and hid the profound meaning in his eyes, revealing a flustered expression as he went up to stop them. Lung Fenghua was like a beast at this time, totally ignoring the onlookers, as he fiercely bullied the lady below him. Second Prince, because of this, was beaten up a few times. After a long while, he finally managed to block Lung Fenghua. Both of them were already dripping with blood. Second Prince took off his clothes and covered Yiqing Qian's body. Although the three old ministers were angry, but he was after all the Crown Prince. One by one, they stepped forward and took off their clothes to cover Lung Fenghua. In the process, the three old ministers were beaten up quite a bit. This matter, naturally, quickly reached the palace. The monarch was furious. If Lung Fenghua and Yiqing Qian were acquainted privately, no one knew. The monarch would turn a blind eye, that was fine. But now, in broad daylight, dismissing the maidservant in the garden, and for the few old ministers to see it clearly. Moreover, he had even beaten up these three old officials. When he heard that when Yiqing Luo was carried for treatment, she had already fainted, and her lower body was covered with blood, the monarch almost fainted from anger. Even Three Springs sect, compared to the other three major sects, had declined quite a bit. But no matter what, it was still one of the four major sections. Otherwise, they wouldn't have disregarded the fact that Yiqing Luo was a wastrel and forcefully betrothed the Yi family's first wife's daughter to Lung Fenghua. Now, Lung Fenghua had turned the Yi clan's eldest young miss into such a state. If he didn't give the Yi clan an explanation, how could Yi Tianquang let it go? Under the monarch's rage, he issued an imperial edict and made Eunuch Chang bring the unconscious Yi Qingqian to the Yi family to retrieve the edict. Lung Fenghua's position as the crown prince was revoked, and he was conferred the title of King Ping. He moved to a fiefdom in the south of the West Continent. Yi Qingqian had arranged for Lung Fenghua to be married to him, together with the dowry of the fief. As for the matter of Lung Fenghua betraying Yi Qingluo and secretly having an affair with Yi Qingqian, the monarch expressed his deep apologies and rewarded Yi Qingluo with quite a lot of gold and silver jewelry. In order to appease the anger of the three old officials, as well as the anger of the people of the world, the monarch gave Yi Qingluo a handwritten instruction. With this handwritten order, Yi Qingluo would be able to move about unimpeded within the imperial city's sphere of influence. Furthermore, she could make any request that did not harm the interests of the royal family, and the royal family would do their best to fulfill it for her. When Yi Qingluo held onto this handwritten order, Eunuch Chang had already returned to report on the completion of the task. Yi Qingqian was carried to the main hall, and there were 2 female doctors who were sent by the monarch to take care of her. They recounted Yi Qingqian's current condition. Madame Yuqi's tears flowed as she listened. Looking at her pale-faced and unconscious daughter on the stretcher, she cried miserably, muttering that she wanted to tear Lung Fenghua into pieces. These words made old Madame's eyelids twitch. Chapter 437. Looking at this scene, Yi Qingluo's lips curled into a smirk of ridicule. In Madame Yuqi's eyes, this smile was a show of strength to her, a show of pride. Recalling what Yi Qingluo said the minute she came back, Yi Qingqian said Lung Fenghua had picked her up, recalling that treacherous smile, recalling what she said earlier about asking them to take good care of Yi Qingqian. Madame Yuqi instantly went crazy as she struggled and pounced towards Yi Qingluo. "It's you. You framed my daughter. You were the one who wanted to destroy my daughter. It must be Yi Qingluo. It must be her. If it wasn't for Yi Qingluo, her daughter wouldn't have turned into this state." It wouldn't take long for the entire Three Springs city to know about it. Carrying it from the palace to the Three Springs Manor, it wouldn't be long before the entire Three Springs city knew about it. The eldest daughter of the Yi family was having an affair with the crown prince in broad daylight. In the end, he stole to the point where he was riddled with scars. Lung Fenghua was stripped of his position as the crown prince. From now on, he would not be able to step into the main city. He wouldn't be able to achieve anything. In this life, he could only be a prince with a title, but no real power. If Yi Qingqian married over, her entire life would be ruined. Making such a big scene, Lung Fenghua had lost all his face, and the Yi family had also lost all their face. If Yi Qingqian married over, would she still be able to receive the favored treatment? Especially when I heard Yi Qingqian was eventually saved by the second prince. This meant that the second prince had seen her body. In this way, Lung Fenghua would despise Yi Qingqian even more. Thinking of this, Madame Yuqi didn't know where the energy came from as she struggled free from the old maid and pounced onto Yi Qingluo, raising her hand to slap Yi Qingluo's face. "You're such a vicious woman. You're a jinx. You've ruined both my daughters. What else do you want? What else do you want? I'll kill you. I'll definitely kill you." But before Madame Yuqi could even touch Yi Qingluo, she felt a sharp pain on her chest as her body flew backwards. Coincidentally, Yi Tianquang received the news and returned. As soon as she stepped into the main hall, she bumped into Madame Yuqi. The strength of Madame Yuqi's throw was extremely great. Yi Tianquang staggered back a few steps from the impact and subconsciously threw the person in his arms away. Only then did he realize that it was Madame Yuqi, whose face was full of tears and was howling crazily. Madame Yuqi had long lost her rationality under the double stimulation. After being hugged by Yi Tianquang, she frantically greeted Yi Tianquang's face. Those sharp nails scratched Yi Tianquang's face, leaving several bloody marks. "I'll kill you. Give me back my daughter. Give me back my daughter." Yi Tianquang impatiently grabbed Madame Yuqi's arm and ruthlessly flung her out. He heard the rumors outside and immediately rushed back, and also heard Madame Yuqi's howl towards Yi Qing Luo earlier. When Yi Tianquang heard of this news, his first reaction was to wonder if this matter was Yi Qing Luo's doing. As the head of the family, Yi Tianquang naturally wasn't stupid. After learning of this matter, the first thing he did was to ask the academy about it. But for what the surrounding students were saying, the one who boarded Lung Fenghua's carriage was obviously Yi Qing Luo. Why was it that the one who got into trouble was Yi Qing Jian? Not waiting for Yi Tianquang to ask, he saw Yi Qing Luo standing up after she finished kicking him. On that devastatingly beautiful face, the expression was cold and detached, neither anxious nor impatient. To speak, you need evidence. You keep saying that everything is because of me, then show me the evidence. Chapter 438. Yi Tianquang's eyes were filled with anger, and his rough voice immediately resounded throughout the main hall. You want proof, don't you? Those people at the entrance of the academy are all witnesses. You became the crown prince. Yi Tianquang paused. Remembering that Lung Fenghua's position as the crown prince had been removed, he changed his words. Got into King Ping's carriage. After all, they were at the academy's entrance, and there were so many people. In front of so many pairs of eyes, Yi Qing Luo had no intention to hide the fact that she had boarded Lung Fenghua's carriage. Her expression didn't change, and the corner of her mouth twitched contemptuously. So what? I did board Lung Fenghua's car, but did I ask Yi Qing Qian to go to the Crown Prince Palace? Yi Tianquang's words were dry and somewhat angry. That's also related to you. Lord Father, your words are quite interesting. Yi Qing Luo's eyes narrowed slightly as she smiled lightly. Don't push all the blame onto me. If the relationship between the two of them was clean, then no matter how I schemed, I would not be able to frame them. Isn't that so? Not waiting for Yi Tianquang to open his mouth, Yi Qing Luo took the lead to rebuke. Father also said that I boarded Lung Fenghua's carriage and went to Crown Prince Palace. Then why did Yi Qing Qian appear there? Why did the two of them get entangled after I left? That's right. If Yi Qing Luo wanted to frame Yi Qing Qian, the prerequisite was that Yi Qing Qian was in the Crown Prince Palace. After asking outside the Heavenly Academy, those who had seen Lung Fenghua personally escorting Yi Qing Luo to the Crown Prince Palace were all ridiculing Yi Qing Qian for overestimating her own capabilities, attempting to snatch her sister's fiancé. From the start to the end, Yi Qing Luo hadn't spoken a single word to Yi Qing Qian, so there was no way that Yi Qing Luo had deceived Yi Qing Qian into the Crown Prince Palace. What's more, there are people who vividly described Yi Qing Qian's twisted and malevolent expression when she stared at Lung Fenghua's carriage. Yi Tianquang was naturally aware of Yi Qing Qian's character since he had always been paying attention to and doting on his daughter. Probably, Yi Qing Qian's appearance in the Crown Prince Palace was because she was jealous of Yi Qing Luo and specially tagged along. Seeing that Yi Tianquang remained silent, Yi Qing Luo's lips curled into a sneer. On the contrary, I feel that the person Lung Fenghua wanted to meet today is actually Yi Qing Qian. But in front of so many people, he's afraid of ruining his own crown prince's reputation, so he deliberately used me as a shield. Otherwise, why would I be asked to leave the Crown Prince Palace right after I arrived at the Crown Prince Palace? And why would such a thing happen right after that? Yi Qing Luo's counterattack actually made sense. For a moment, Yi Tianquang was speechless. Even Madame Yuqi, who had been crying, stopped crying. It seemed like there was really such a possibility. After all, Yi Qing Qian and Lung Fenghua had always been sneakily together. Some time ago, because Yi Qing Luo kept on bringing this matter out in the open in front of the commoners. This kind of scandal would greatly affect the crown prince's status. The most important point is, why did second prince go at such a coincidental time? Yi Qing Luo asked this question word by word. Second prince accepted such a huge gift from her and successfully brought Lung Fenghua down from the stage. Although the monarch hadn't appointed another crown prince, But Second Prince's actions today had brushed up the three old ministers and the commoner's favorable impression. The Crown Prince's position would belong to Second Prince sooner or later. Just treat it as returning the gift. This pot, Second Prince should carry it well. This sentence indeed attracted Yi Tianquang's attention. That's right, in the royal family, the only person Yi Qing Luo knew was only Lung Fenghua. Yi Qing Luo probably hadn't even met Second Prince before, so how would she collude with Second Prince to frame Yi Qing Qian? Chapter 439. Yi Qing Luo had a panoramic view of Yi Tianquang and old Grandmadame's expressions. The corners of her lips curled into a cold smile as she turned around and grabbed Yi Fengyu's arm. She chuckled, "Eldest sister, this matter has a deep impact on the Three Springs sect. Father will be mentally and physically exhausted in the near future." She paused for a moment, then smiled even more charmingly. "I'm afraid I won't be able to see Big Sister get married. Then I'll have to trouble Father to congratulate Big Sister on my behalf and congratulate her for finally getting married to Lung Fenghua." Ever since Yi Qing Luo's marriage was fixed, Yi Qing Jian had been racking her brains to seduce Lung Fenghua. Finally, he successfully made Lung Fenghua's gaze shift to him. Wasn't it for the sake of marrying Lung Fenghua? Madame Yuqi's face was steely green as the rouge on her face was smeared by her tears. She didn't even know that as her pair of venomous eyes stared fiercely at Yi Qing Luo. Looking at the smile on Yi Qing Luo's face, listening to her congratulations, it was obvious that he harbored malicious intentions and wanted to see a joke. "Get lost. Get lost. Get out of here." Madame Yuqi only felt that her eyes were extremely dazzling. A sour feeling assaulted her nose, and tears rolled down her cheeks again. Her two daughters, the two daughters she was so proud of, were ruined. Her dream of becoming the crown princess was over. Her dream of using her daughter's power to become the first madam of the Yi family was completely shattered. Yi Qing Luo's charming eyes were curved, sparkling like stars, dazzling and dazzling. She didn't say anything else, and just dragged Yi Fengyu out of the main hall. Behind her, no one stopped her, nor did they have the time to stop her. The most important thing now was how to solve the scandal that Yi Qing Qian created. Although they wholeheartedly wanted Yi Qing Qian to become the crown prince's imperial concubine, but they had to use an open and above-board excuse to make it seem legitimate. At this critical juncture, he used such a method to expose everything. Yi Qing Qian would only bear the infamy of being a slut who had no bottom line to forcibly take her sister's fiancé. He probably wouldn't be able to wash himself clean in this lifetime. The Three Springs sect was also deeply affected, and people were pointing fingers at them. They were badly battered, but Yi Qing Luo was extremely relaxed. The two of them walked all the way out of the Three Springs sect's residence. Yi Qing Luo released her brother's wrist and walked towards the west of the city. Yi Fengyu followed closely behind his sister's footsteps, his face filled with anxiety and worry. "Sister, aren't you afraid that when Yi Qing Qian wakes up, she will expose you?" Yi Qing Luo's righteous words to Yi Tianquang earlier had shocked him so much that his heart was thumping nonstop. Although he didn't understand the process, but he was very clear that Lung Fenghua and Yi Qing Qian would be in the garden. It was absolutely related to his sister. Even if she were to expose me, who would believe her? Yi Qing Luo wasn't bothered at all. Since she dared to say this, she wasn't afraid. The current Yi Qing Qian's reputation had hit rock bottom, and she was full of curses. Even if she said that she was framed by Yi Qing Luo, and said that Lung Fenghua was also framed by Yi Qing Luo and had taken an aphrodisiac. But with Yi Qing Luo's righteous speech earlier, the Yi family had already excluded Yi Qing Luo from the first impression. When Yi Qing Qian said this, Yi Tianquang would only think that she was at death's door and still wanted to drag Yi Qing Luo down to be a scapegoat. All right, this matter ends here. What you need to do next is to put your mind on cultivation and training. Yi Qing Luo saw that Yi Fengyu still had a worried look on his face and stretched out her hand to pinch his cheek. For the 3 days of holiday, you will follow the Devil class's students and undergo actual combat training. Don't forget the promise you made to sister. Sister, I have always remembered it. Chapter 440. The young man Sonor's voice and unwavering tone declared his promise. Yiqing Luo's eyes were filled with smiles, like the sun, dazzling and warm. The next second, Yi Fengyu rubbed his face and muttered softly, "Devil classes students. All need to participate in actual combat training. You want me to follow them? Why don't you let me follow Master Gui? When you see them later, say this again." Yiqing Luo laughed lightly as she stretched out her hand and messed up Yi Fengyu's meticulously combed hair. City West Mansion. It was an old mansion which didn't look outstanding on the outside. This was the old mansion which Yin Xiao Yi had used all her years of savings to purchase. From the outside, it looked rather old and shabby, and in the bustling Three Springs city, it was extremely inconspicuous. But when Yiqing Luo led Yi Fengyu into the inner courtyard, the entire mansion style seemed to have undergone an earth-shattering change. The decorations, the clusters of flowers, the luxuriant trees, it was absolutely not inferior to any large family's mansion. On the contrary, it looked extremely luxurious. They had just arrived at the inner courtyard, and Xiao Jin was greeting the students, assigning them to their rooms. The minute he saw Yiqing Luo, he went up to her. "This mansion is much more comfortable than Devil Class. In future when we graduate, let's sleep here at Xiao Yi's place." Saying that, his vision shifted onto Yi Fengyu. "My brother, Master Gui Yu's disciple." Yiqing Luo pushed Yi Fengyu forward. "His ability is not bad, but he lacks actual combat experience. He will be training with you these few days. Also, join the mercenary group?" Xiao Jin tugged Yi Fengyu as he touched his bone structure. "Join." Yi Fengyu was stunned as he blinked his eyes in a daze. "Sister, what mercenary group? Kids only need to be obedient, don't ask too much." Yiqing Luo patted his head. "Go and nurture your relationship with your brothers and sisters." Yi Fengyu obediently agreed, his gaze drifting back and forth between the students around him. These were all Devil Classes students. They looked to be around his age, and their faces were filled with radiant smiles. They were totally different from the Academy's rumored trash. Not allowing Yi Fengyu to think deeply, Xiao Jin's arm was already on his shoulder. "Let's go, Brother Qiao will bring you to meet the other brothers and sisters. The earlier you get to know each other, the more you can nurture your rapport." Yi Fengyu's body stiffened. He had never had a friend that he could put his arm around. Xiao Jin's action frightened him. Subconsciously, Yi Fengyu looked at Yiqing Luo for help. Before she could say anything, an elegant and cheerful voice rang out. "Sister, you're here." She saw a lady dressed in a black furry long dress bouncing over to Yiqing Luo's side as she hooked her arm with one hand. Her delicate and sweet face was filled with a sweet smile. Her eyes, which were as cunning as a cat's, were full of worship. Yi Fengyu's heart fiercely trembled, and he swallowed back the words that were about to come out his mouth. Following that, a few other female students surrounded Yiqing Luo. "Madam Qing Luo, Student Yi." Their faces were full of smiles. Moreover, their gazes towards Yiqing Luo were all the same, filled with worship, as though Yiqing Luo was their revered deity, their pillar of support. "Feel that sister has been snatched away?" Xiao Jin's voice suddenly rang beside his ear. Yi Fengyu was stunned, as his vision stared at Yiqing Luo's direction without blinking, as he shook his head. "Only. Feel that sister is really incredible." Chapter 441. There's a magical power on her, a magical power that attracts people. Half of Xiao Jin's body was already hanging on Yi Fengyu's shoulder. This is a unique charm that belongs to her, and no one is able to escape from her magical power. In Yi Fengyu's chest, there seemed to be something boiling hot as it started to boil. Yes, his sister had the ability to infect the surrounding people. She had the magical power to turn something rotten into something magical. These people's admiration towards his sister was no less than his. Yi Fengyu's lips curled upwards, that originally restless heart slowly settled down. That afternoon, before it was even 5 in the morning, Devil Class's 60 over students had all arrived at the mansion. Even though it was a holiday, Yiqing Luo didn't let them slack off on their training. All the students then started training in the mansion's courtyard. When Yi Fengyu saw these students training in an orderly manner, he was completely stunned. These students obviously had not just started training recently. Their movements were standard and their coordination was extremely good. After a set of training, even he who had been praised by Master Guiyu for his physique was already unable to take it. But these students, who were labeled as waste, didn't have any change in expression as they continued with the next set of training. Damn it! What kind of waste were these? Was the academy really not blind? And they were definitely blind. Otherwise, they wouldn't have allocated his sister to Devil Class. Yi Fengyu recalled that before he came, he was still doubting Devil Class's ability, as his face was filled with shame. He clenched his teeth, not willing to admit defeat, as he immediately followed up with these students' training. After the training ended, the students lined up properly. They saw Yin Xiao pushing a wooden cart as she walked over. On the wooden cart, there were sets of brand new clothes. Since we're a team, and also a team to develop into a mercenary group, then we must have a uniform. Yin Xiao picked up a set of clothes as she waved it. Each person has 2 sets, Vice Class Monitor. She paused for a moment as she burst out laughing. No, now we should call Vice Group Leader. When Vice Group Leader calls your name, come over to collect your clothes. Xiao Jin rolled his eyes. Go ahead and tease me, Great Manager Yin. He intentionally spat out the last 4 words, word by word. Yin Xiao directly threw the clothes in her hands towards Xiao Jin's face. Amidst the laughter, the students had already collected 2 sets of clothes and returned to their rooms. About an hour later, these people put on the clothes and returned to the courtyard to line up. Xiao Jin and the others also changed into this set of clothes. When he walked out, he saw that the entire courtyard was filled with youths dressed in the same clothes, and their faces were filled with smiles of joy and excitement. His heart was filled with a sense of satisfaction. These clothes were made according to each student's measurements, and each student's name was embroidered on the collar with golden thread. Ever since Yiqing Luo said that she wanted to establish a mercenary group, Yin Xiao, Xiao Jin, and the others had already discussed to prepare a set of mercenary group uniform for this batch of youngsters. After the discussion, they hired 100 tailors and embroidery workers at a high price and rushed to make more than 100 sets of clothes. This was their uniform. It was the uniform of their mercenary group. The youths touched the clothes on their bodies very carefully, afraid that they would damage their new clothes. Has everyone changed their clothes? Do they all fit? A clear voice came from the main hall. His voice wasn't loud, but it suppressed the clamor in the courtyard. Chapter 442. In the main hall, 2 figures walked out. The exact same mercenary group's attire, but with 2 totally different styles. The woman's long hair was tied up into a bun, using a black hair tie to secure it at the back of her head, revealing that devastatingly beautiful face. Between her brows, there was a peerless, enchanting look. That black attire clung tightly to her nice figure. Her entire person was breathtaking, revealing a kind of enchanting and languid charm that could charm all living beings. As for the man, his handsome face was cold, without any emotions, with a pair of azure blue eyes, staring coldly in front. This black warrior robe added a little wildness to his aura that people didn't want to get close to. The black attire, embroidered on the sleeve, was a blossoming cherry blossom totem, which was extremely eye-catching. The fabric of the attire was soft and close-fitting and extremely resistant to wear. Yin Xiao especially spent a huge sum of money to invite 10 over-armament masters to enchant every single piece of clothing with some elements. Every piece of clothing had the ability to prevent knives from cutting, slashing, and all ordinary sharp weapons. It was equivalent to a golden silk soft armor, impenetrable by swords and spears. And there was a special function. A good-looking person is indeed different. Xiao Jin clicked his tongue, propping his chin as he shook his head, Look at our Qing Luo, dressed like a fairy descending to earth, breathtaking, and look at our student Xiao. When he said to this point, he paused, shaking his head helplessly. Damn, what do you mean? Yin Xiaoyi's eyes twitched as she threw a slap towards Xiao Jin's face. Although I'm not as good as Qing Luo, but at least I'm beautiful. You blind one, get lost. All right, stop quarreling. Long Yinzhan opened his mouth coldly. The two of them instantly shut their mouths, but when their four eyes met, it was still burning with intense sparks. Yiqing Luo's charming eyes swept past these youngsters in front of her. They were dressed in their own unique uniform, their expressions solemn, as their gazes kept staring at her. This feeling was very warm, so warm that her heart was about to melt from their smiles. If there's any part that doesn't fit, tell Xiao Yi so that we can amend it in time. Yiqing Luo's voice became much gentler. Fits. Very fitting. How could not fit? The youngsters' hearts were filled with gratitude. What they didn't know was when Yin Xiao Yi had already memorized everyone's clothing measurements without a single mistake. Tonight, you must rest well. Yiqing Luo's lips curled into a smile. Tomorrow, we will be heading to the Mercenary Association to register our mercenary group. Moreover, we will be taking on our first mission. She paused for a moment and narrowed her charming eyes, emitting a majestic aura. I have very high expectations for all of you. The first mission will definitely not be easy. Furthermore, I demand that all of you complete the first mission at all costs. The youngsters' expressions suddenly changed as they were shocked by Yiqing Luo's words. The youngsters' expressions suddenly changed as they were of Yi. The lowest level was the low-level mission, followed by the mid-level mission, high-level mission, complex mission, and the most difficult to complete, which was the one that even the gold medal mercenary groups couldn't complete, were the god-level missions. Based on Yiqing Luo's character, her first mission would definitely be a high-level mission. Looking at the youngsters whose faces had turned pale from fright, Yiqing Luo's smile didn't diminish. Let's disperse and return to your rooms to rest. Don't be so nervous that you can't sleep. If you affect everyone's progress tomorrow, you will be a sinner for all eternity. Clap, clap, clap. In the silent inner courtyard, the crisp sound of applause was extremely loud. Who is it? Chapter 443. A man with jet black hair, dressed in a purple robe, floated in midair as he walked over. Like a deity descending, he slowly landed at the entrance of the inner courtyard. That peerless face, the corners of his eyes were long and narrow, and his thin lips were curled into an extremely shallow arc. It was full of demonic charm. Such a strong aura, such a strong power. The youngsters' eyes widened as they stared dazedly at this godlike man in front of them. Overlord, the legend in their hearts, the target that they yearned for. The Overlord who has always been elusive has actually allowed us to meet him. I'm not dreaming, am I? This is really the Overlord? What the? I heard that Student Yi and the Overlord have a close relationship. This is true. The youngsters stared at DMO Xian in shock. All of them couldn't wait to rush up and touch him to see if he was really the Overlord. DMO Xian's appearance instantly attracted all the youngsters' gazes. Yiqing Luo was also astonished. Why was he here? The man's narrow, long, devilish charm, glistening peach blossom eyes, gazed deeply at Yiqing Luo, as though he wanted to melt her in his gaze. Yiqing Luo's cheeks suddenly turned red and boiling hot. Her breathing quickened as he got closer to her. The surrounding youngsters were all shocked. This gaze, this atmosphere. If these two people didn't have anything going on, who would believe it? The surrounding students' envious and teasing gazes looked towards Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo's cheeks turned boiling hot as her heartbeat sped up. Like a young lady in love, her heart was moved. She thought that DMO Xian would only appear when the both of them were alone. She had even made preparations to return to her room to rest, waiting for DMO Xian's arrival. She had not expected him to appear openly in the inner courtyard in front of these students. You're indeed my little Luo. Well said. The man's mellow whine-like voice rang lightly in the inner courtyard sky. As he said that, he had already walked in front of Yi-Ching Luo. Stretching out his hand, his well-defined fingers caressed Yi-Ching Luo's face. His jade-like fingers gently caressed the strands of hair by the side of her face, circling to the back of her head, his fingertips gentle. "You've worked hard." That gentle touch was like a feather brushing over his skin. Yi-Ching Luo's curly long eyelashes fluttered as her charming eyes were tainted with a layer of haziness. She raised her eyes and was met with a pair of eyes that were as gentle as water and filled with love. His clear and melodious voice still rang in her ears. It was so gentle that it seemed as if water could be squeezed out of it. Her heart was suddenly struck by something and softened. She took the initiative to snuggle into Dmo Xian's arms, her arms circling around his waist, her nostrils filled with the familiar sandalwood scent. She smiled like a flower and said in a sweet voice, "Ah, Xian." Dmo Xian's index finger caressed Yi-Ching Luo's silky hair as his eyes overflowed with gentleness. "It can't be. Our classmate Yi really has this kind of relationship with the Overlord? Why not? It was already so obvious. Damn it. Oh, my eyes. I'm going to be blinded by the light. It's simply showing off to dogs. This scene is too beautiful." It was indeed beautiful. The man was domineering and awe-inspiring, and his purple robe fluttered in the wind. The woman was enchanting and alluring, dressed in a black tight suit. Her good figure was in harmony with the man's arms. Both of them had looks that could topple an entire nation, with an unparalleled, imposing manner. The combination was indeed an extremely beautiful picture. Chapter 444. This feeling, where did it come from? He wasn't sure. Only seeing Dmo Xian hugging Yi-Ching Luo with a slightly provocative gaze as he glanced at him, Long Yunjian instantly felt that even his breathing became heavier. He frowned, and like the other youngsters, he stared at the scene of the two hugging. The man was handsome, and the lady was pretty, extremely compatible. From Yi-Ching Luo's gaze, he could tell that she had true feelings for Dmo Xian. Wasn't this very good? But what was this strange feeling in his heart? What was going on? Everyone, quickly return to your rooms to rest. Tomorrow morning, we will be heading to the Mercenary Association. Xiao Jin was the first to react, as he hurriedly called the youngsters back to their rooms to sleep. It was rare to see the Overlord in person. How would these youngsters be willing to leave? All of them stared at Dmo Xian reluctantly, and under Xiao Jin's repeated urging, they only took a few steps back. "Haven't you seen that your Madame Ching Luo has met her lover, and has long thrown you all to the back of her mind?" Yin Xiaoyi's brows rose as she laughed in ridicule. "As long as Ching Luo is around, isn't meeting the Overlord anytime and anywhere? Today is a rare chance. Let this loving couple spend some time alone." Saying that, the surrounding youngsters then reluctantly accepted, leaving the space for the two of them. After Xiao Jin and the rest dispersed the youngsters, they were also preparing to leave. After walking a few steps, they realized that Long Yunjian was still standing at the original spot. His azure blue eyes were as still as water, staring at the two hugging each other with an expressionless face. He sighed as he went up and tugged Long Yunjian's arm. "My group leader, let's go, let's go." Long Yunjian's body stiffened as he followed Xiao Jin's tugging and left the inner courtyard. Not long later, the entire inner courtyard was only left with Yi-Ching Luo and Dmo Xian. "Ah, Xian, why are you here now?" Yi-Ching Luo raised her charming eyes as the hand which was hugging his waist tightened. He was the Overlord. His identity was mysterious and respectable. Appearing in front of this bunch of youngsters was to announce to them that he was in Three Springs City, and their relationship was completely exposed. "It's not like I can't be seen. Why can't I be here?" Dmo Xian's brows rose as his fingertips inserted into Yi-Ching Luo's hair as he lifted a lock of hair. Her tone was cheerful and relaxed. It was as if she didn't feel that his actions were inappropriate. But your identity is not very dangerous. The legend of the Nirvana realm, the #1 for a long time, this kind of identity and gimmick, no matter where he went, he would become the target of certain people. In particular, he was backed by the #1 force, the Imperial Palace. If the news that DMO Xian was in Three Spring City was leaked out, he was afraid that his future days would not be peaceful. It's all right. These are your brothers, aren't they? DMO Xian stretched out his finger and stopped Yiqing Luo from finishing her sentence. He gazed at the lovely girl in his arms. The woman had a bashful expression on her face. Her eyes were like silk, and there was a seductive charm between her brows. It stirred up his heart, and a faint heat flowed through it. Yiqing Luo's expression was startled. That was right. These were all students of the Devil class, her team, her brothers. DMO Xian appeared at the old mansion because he believed in her foresight and believed in the brothers she believed in. Actually because of DMO Xian. She didn't even think about this aspect. It was said that after falling in love, one's IQ would drop in a straight line. Yiqing Luo now totally acknowledged this sentence. Amen. That's right. These are my brothers. They will absolutely not tell anyone about your matter. Yiqing Luo smiled, suddenly recalling the expressionless Long Yunjian who was pulled away by Qiao Jin earlier. She immediately explained, earlier that person is my class monitor. His name is Long Yunjian. Don't just look at his expressionless face, actually. Oh. Chapter 445. Yiqing Luo's pupils widened as she let out a moan. His gaze met with a pair of pitch-black, deep eyes. A whirlpool, as though it was going to suck her in. So deep, so thick. She wanted to struggle, but DMO Xian clasped the back of her head tightly as he deepened the kiss. Impenetrable, as though he wanted to plunder Yiqing Luo completely, swallowing her into his stomach. The thick masculine scent enveloped Yiqing Luo completely, as though it was a love net, firmly trapping her for life. This kiss made Yiqing Luo unable to struggle anymore. The next day, Yiqing Luo opened her eyes on time and was just about to get up when an arm was around her waist, pressing her down till she couldn't move. She glanced sideways, looking at DMO Xian's peerless looks. No matter which angle she looked at him, he was that handsome, especially when he was asleep. The lines on his face were even softer, adding some warmth. His hand encircled her waist, his leg pressed against hers. Yiqing Luo's entire body was encircled in DMO Xian's arms. His scorching embrace, familiar breath, made Yiqing Luo feel dizzy for a moment. Every time she woke up, DMO Xian's figure was no longer beside her. This was the first time, the moment she opened her eyes, she could see him. Yiqing Luo's lips curled up slightly as she stretched out her finger, circling around the contours of his face, drawing one by one. This hand just touched. Her wrist was grasped by a big hand. DMO Xian opened that pair of demonic peach blossom eyes. Perhaps it was because he had just woken up, his eyes were covered with a layer of haziness. It made him look even more languid and alluring. Yiqing Luo's cheeks flushed, as though she was caught red-handed doing something bad, and immediately retracted her hand. But her wrist, which was grasped, couldn't struggle free no matter what. That pair of legs, which was pressing against her, slid forward. His whole body was on top of her. Yiqing Luo was stunned, as her cheeks flushed even redder. Stop fooling around. I still want. A kiss blanketed the sky and covered the earth, totally not giving Yiqing Luo any chance to struggle. Damn it. She woke up to a bed slam. Another hour passed as the commotion went on, until Yin Xiao knocked on the door outside. Qing Luo, yesterday you were the one who said you wanted to wake up early, but you're the last one. Even if the Overlord is around, you need to be more reserved. Yiqing Luo couldn't voice out her bitterness. What did he mean by asking her to be more reserved? They should have asked DMO Xian, that beast, to be more reserved. Yiqing Luo bashfully raised her fist and hammered hard on DMO Xian's chest. Flipping over from a bed, Yiqing Luo used the fastest speed to finish washing up. Turning his head, he saw that the reserved animal had already put on the same set of black clothes. This was Xiao Jin's, and he had specially given it to Dmo Xian to wear last night. This set of clothes was specially designed to be tight-fitting, making it easier to move around. When Dmo Xian wore it, he was simply a model of abstinence. The clothes were obviously a little small, as it wrapped around Dmo Xian's well-built body, and those chunks of top muscles could be seen vaguely. Yiqing Luo's face immediately turned red. You're prepared to go with us? Dmo Xian raised his brows. It's a rare holiday. I naturally have to accompany by your side. Wherever you go, I'll go. You're so ostentatious. Can we still happily carry out the actual combat training? Although Dmo Xian was accompanying them, she was very happy in her heart. But after all, he was the overlord. If he were to interfere, then this round's training would completely change its flavor. She saw Dmo Xian slowly taking out a jade bottle from the profound dragon ring. Chapter 446. Not long after, when Dmo Xian turned around, what entered Yiqing Luo's eyes was an ordinary-looking face. It was so ordinary that one would forget it the very next second. The art of disguise could almost be mistaken for the real person. Even though she had seen Dmo Xian's disguise with her own eyes, Yiqing Luo was still unable to differentiate whether this face was real or fake. However, no matter how ordinary Dmo Xian's face was, his figure was tall and straight, and the majestic aura that he released could not be concealed no matter what, especially that pair of peach blossom eyes, which were filled with charm. His otherworldly aura was enough to attract the gazes of countless people onto him. This isn't good. Yiqing Luo stared at Dmo Xian's face as she stretched out her hand and poked it. It felt exactly the same as a real face. What's wrong with that? Dmo Xian's brows rose as he held Yiqing Luo's little hand. In this way, you don't need to worry about being recognized. Yiqing Luo nestled in his arms. It was still the same person. His body temperature was still the same as before. The taste was still the same. But this face, Yiqing Luo had a feeling that he was out of acting. What to do? Don't tell me. Lil Luo, who despises me for being ugly? Dmo Xian narrowed his eyes as he placed her hand on his face. Yiqing Luo shook her head. I'm just not used to it. Dmo Xian clasped her lower jaw and lowered his head to kiss her lips. Then I'll let you get used to this face up close, after all. For the 3 days of the holiday, you'll be facing this face. Yiqing Luo's resistance was forcefully swallowed by Dmo Xian. She whimpered and struggled, howling in her heart, damn it, how could there be such a habit? Finally, under Yin Xiao Yi's urging, the two of them walked out one after another. Yin Xiao Yi was just about to open her mouth to tease, but discovered that the person behind Yiqing Luo, she didn't know him. A strange man. His figure was not bad, and his temperament was also not bad. However, that face was too ordinary. He was ugly, even uglier than Xiao Jin. Holy shit, she must have discovered something incredible. Yin Xiao Yi's suspicious eyes darted back and forth between the two. Under Yiqing Luo's puzzled gaze, she went up and nudged Yiqing Luo's arm as she whispered, "Not bad, Qing Luo. Last night you and the Overlord were so affectionate, and after just one night, the one who came out of your room was a different man. If the Overlord were to find out about this, wouldn't he skin you alive? How dare he?" Yiqing Luo snorted lightly as she glanced sideways at the man beside her. Look, the degree of this disguise. Even Yin Xiao Yi was fooled. Skin them? How could I bear to? The man's mellow and deep voice rose slightly. His long arms stretched out as he pulled Yiqing Luo into his embrace. His squinted peach blossom eyes filled with a dense warning. He glanced askance at Yin Xiao Yi, and under his gaze, the latter shrunk her neck dejectedly and jumped a few steps to the side. This ordinary-looking man was His Excellency, the Overlord. She knew it. How would Qing Luo possibly go behind the overlord's back to look for other men? Even if she were to look for someone, she should find a man who was more handsome than the overlord. Dmo Xian scoffed lightly as he leaned close to Yi Qing Luo's ear. His warm breath sprayed on her earlobe. His low and hoarse voice was very low, very deep. Do you dare to get close to other men? I can't bear to skin you alive, but I can use other methods to make your waist and legs sore, so weak that you have no way to get close to any man. Yi Qing Luo's lips twitched as her cheeks flushed red. Chapter 447. Your mother. Simply too beastly. Yi Qing Luo pushed Dmo Xin aside and strode towards Yin Xiao Yi, holding her arm, and left the room. Before they reached the inner courtyard, they heard the youngsters' discussions. Are Madame Qing Luo and the overlord really have that kind of relationship? Are you silly? It's so obvious and you can't tell? No matter how I feel, it's inconceivable. That's the overlord. The overlord. Who among the youngsters didn't know Dmo Xian? That mythical existence. Quite a number of families took Dmo Xian's portrait and worshipped him like a Buddha, but he actually appeared in front of them and even smiled at them. What do you mean by that? Could it be that sister isn't worthy of him? Kitty Lee gave a light humph. So what if he's the overlord? It's his fortune that sister is willing to be with him. Kitty, don't you know who the overlord is? He's the most powerful person in Nirvana realm. So what if he's the most powerful? Sister will surpass Nirvana realm in future and become one of the top 3. Stop quarreling. A cold and dignified voice interrupted the voices of the crowd. Long Yunzhan placed his hands behind his back as he walked out from the main hall with a pair of azure-blue eyes, dull and cold. His vision swept past the youngsters present. What we need to do is to put our thoughts into training and raising our own abilities. As for other matters, it has nothing to do with you. How can it have nothing to do with me? Kitty Lee's brows creased as her ears shook. The reason why the students are discussing this topic is because they care about sister. Sister's happiness is also very important. Long Yunzhan's brows creased slightly as his icy cold gaze congealed towards Kitty Lee. He didn't say a word as he released an invisible pressure which made all the youngsters present hang their heads down. However, Kitty Lee seemed as though she didn't feel this pressure as she placed her hands on her waist, and her petite face was filled with protection for Yi Qing Luo. All right. Why are you quarreling? Xiao Jin saw that the atmosphere wasn't right as he hurriedly tried to smooth things over. The overlord and Qing Luo standing together. That's called a golden boy and jade girl, a match made in heaven. No matter how you look at it, they look so sweet and blissful. So what are you all worried about? Indeed, when I saw Lord Monarch Zun yesterday, I almost doubted the authenticity of the rumors. The way the overlord looked at Qing Luo, it almost melted me. Such a gentle expression. Lord D. Zun is not the only one I want to suspect. One of the youths lowered his voice, his tone filled with uncontrollable mirth. Did you guys see that? Student Yi is usually so valiant in front of us, powerful and intelligent. But in front of Lord D. Zun, he seems to be a different person. Right. Looking at His Majesty's smile, it's like flowers are blooming. At that moment, I finally realized that student Yi is actually a girl. I agree. Yi Qing Luo, who was standing at the corner, kept twitching when she heard that. She turned her head and stared at Yin Xiao Yi, who was laughing so hard that she couldn't stand up straight. Don't tell me I look like a guy usually. Actually, they're right. Yin Xiao Yi leaned against the wall and covered her mouth, trying her best not to laugh out loud. The you from yesterday was like a completely different person from your usual self. Like a completely different person. She didn't even know what she looked like in front of Dmo Xian. She obviously felt that there wasn't any difference from usual. Chapter 448. More like a woman? Yi Qing Luo's heart trembled fiercely. Her cheeks started to feel a burning sensation. All of you only know how to tease me. Yi Qing Luo bit her lower lip as she gave a humph and walked towards the inner courtyard. On seeing Yi Qing Luo's appearance, Long Yunjan's vision was fixed on her. On discovering that there wasn't any other figure behind her, his tensed expression relaxed slightly. Long Yunjan was just about to walk over when those youngsters who had already lined up started to tease. Student Yi is actually willing to get up, Overlord pinching you. Committee President Yin had already shouted twice before Student Yi finally arrived. Student Yi, you and Overlord were together for the entire night? The youngster's teasing words made Yi Qing Luo's pretended solemn face turn completely red. No matter how thick her skin was, she was still a lady after all. Seeing that Yi Qing Luo didn't rebuke them, the youngsters seemed as though they had been injected with chicken blood as they started to clap and laugh. Long Yunjan's expression suddenly turned chilly. Hearing these students' words, his heart felt strangely stifled. A burst of unspeakable fury started to burn from the bottom of his heart. He didn't know why he was so angry or why he had such a huge fluctuation in his emotions. This him wasn't like the original him. Long Yunjan's brows creased slightly as his hands clenched into fists, suppressing the unhappiness in his heart as he spoke in a deep voice. We've already wasted a lot of time. Let's set off immediately towards the Mercenary Association. The minute he said that, those youngsters who were still laughing and joking around immediately quietened down. Xiao Jin, who was standing by the side, saw Long Yunjan's changes. His brows gradually furrowed into a ball, and his eyes darkened. Hearing that they were setting off, the youngsters' expressions immediately turned solemn as they prepared to set off. Wait a minute. Yi Qing Luo suddenly recalled something as she couldn't be bothered to continue blushing as her fingers touched the ring, which was flowing with a demonic red glow. A huge wooden box dropped down from the profound phoenix ring. With a dong, it crashed on the ground, causing the ground to tremble. Yi Qing Luo opened the wooden box and saw that there were strips of black cloth in the box. While the youngsters were still clueless about what was going on, they heard Yi Qing Luo saying, "Each of you take 4 gravitational belts and tie both your hands and legs. Other than sleeping, without our permission, you are not allowed to remove it." Gravity belt? The youths were dumbfounded. A young man walked forward and bent down to pick up the cloth. He had thought that it was just a strip of cloth, but how could it be a strip of cloth? This is way too heavy. Each belt has a weight of 20 kilograms. Yi Qing Luo calmly glanced at that young man who was holding the gravity belt. Each person has 4. Come over to collect it. These gravity belts were inspired by the weight-bearing accessories in the profound phoenix ring. Changing these weight-bearing accessories into gravity belts was convenient and useful. The youths were about to vomit blood. Each fish weighed 20 pounds, so 4 of them weighed 80 pounds. They had to carry a weight of 80 kilograms every day to accept mercenary group missions. Ayo. Indeed, Madame Qing Luo only acts like a woman in front of the Overlord. Three Springs City's Mercenary Association was the Mercenary Association's branch. To establish a mercenary group, they had to first register at the Mercenary Association and obtain the Mercenary Group badge before they could be considered to have established a mercenary group. They were about 2 hours away from the Mercenary Association. The mighty group of 60 over people used their own 2 feet to head towards the Mercenary Association. To put it nicely, walking was also a form of training. To these youngsters, a journey of 2 hours wasn't much pressure at all. Chapter 449. Looking at those few people in front, their footsteps were relaxed and they were brimming with energy. The youths all started to suspect whether the gravity belts on these few people were fake or not. Whereas at this moment, the few people who had been devastated by the youngsters' gazes were walking calmly. Long Yunjan, Xiao Jin, Yin Xiao Yi, and Mo Yuing, and the others lined up in a row as they walked in front. Yin Xiao Yi occasionally spoke a few words to Mo Yuing, while Mo Yuing listened on expressionlessly. Long Yunjan was as indifferent as usual, with an expressionless face. Only his peripheral vision would occasionally glance towards a certain direction behind him. Xiao Jin, who was by his side, had his brows furrowed with a troubled look, unlike the past, where he was the livelier of the atmosphere. And behind these four people was Yiqing Luo and Di Emotion. The two of them seemed to be whispering something, and Yiqing Luo would occasionally laugh out or raise her fist to punch Di Emotion as her cheeks flushed red. Apparently, Di Emotion was teasing Yiqing Luo again. The youngsters were mentally and physically exhausted. While they were physically and mentally exhausted, they still had to accept their dog abusing light waves. How could they live on? After walking for around 1 hour, the group of them arrived at the marketplace, which they had to pass to reach the Mercenary Association. Because the mercenary groups had to head to the Mercenary Association to accept the mission, then return to the Mercenary Association to complete the mission and collect the reward. While the mercenary groups were completing the mission, they would conveniently bring back some items which could be sold for money and place them on this route which they had to pass by to trade. 1 or 2 mercenary groups did this, and following that, other mercenary groups followed suit. Over time, this place had formed into a marketplace for merchants to trade items. From the mercenary group's temporary stalls, it had evolved into merchants' shops as far as the eye could see. It was the first time for these youngsters to come to such a place. Seeing the bustling marketplace with a dazzling array of goods, all of their faces revealed a curious expression. Yiqing Luo saw this and pushed the emotion aside as she took several quick steps forward. Why don't we rest here for a while? Xiao Jin and the others also surveyed the surroundings. The few of them had been sealed in Heavenly Academy for the past few years, not going anywhere else. Every month's holiday, they would return back to their own homes, accepting the supercilious looks from their family members, so where would they have the mood to go out? At this moment, when they saw this bustling place, their hearts started jumping with joy. Hearing Yiqing Luo's suggestion, he immediately nodded his head in agreement. More than 60 of them gathered together to shop in an orderly manner. It was too eye-catching. Moreover, these youths all had different hobbies. Yiqing Luo simply gave each of them a silver coin and warned them not to create any trouble. Kitty Li, Yifeng Yu, and Ni Ruo Pan wanted to follow Yiqing Luo, but were forcefully chased out. Long Yunjian was not very interested in these things, so he went to the tea house alone, ordered a cup of tea, and sat there without saying a word. It was rare for Xiao Jin and the rest to have a chance to play, so they directly left Long Yunjian behind. The three of them held hands and went to wander aimlessly in other places. Yiqing Luo was also interested in these, so she pulled Diemo Xian along and wandered around a few stalls. There were many kinds of items in the market, and they were all related to cultivation. There were also merchants who caught low-level magical beasts and put them in wooden cages to sell, attracting the attention of many young ladies. A few of the students from the devil class also crowded around at the side. Monster cores on sale, intermediate and above monster cores on sale, at a low price. At the opposite side of the stall, which was selling the magical beasts, a loud and clear cry was suddenly heard. Yiqing Luo looked towards the direction of the voice and saw a magical beast stall not too far away. A young man had one foot on a stool as his hands kept on dancing. Chapter 450. Magic Beast Core. Yiqing Luo's interest was piqued. Previously in the Magic Beast Forest, because of the beast tide caused by Diemo Xian, Yiqing Luo had plundered quite a number of magic beast cores. She even added 3 to 4 magic crystals. She was looking for a buyer to sell these magic beast cores. Yiqing Luo walked to the stall and swept a glance at the stall. These magic beast cores were indeed not bad. All of them were intermediate and above, but there were a small number of low-grade magic beast cores. How much for one piece of low-grade and intermediate magic beast core? The young man beamed with joy when he saw business. Miss has a good eye. The magic beast cores in my stall are all high grade. Look at these 2 magic beast cores. The low grade is only 10 silver coins, and the intermediate is 50 silver coins. Yiqing Luo frowned slightly. This price was definitely not cheap. Thinking back to the young man's solemn vow of, beat me up if it's not cheap, if he really sold the magic beast cores at this price, he would have been beaten up a few hundred times. Yiqing Luo put down the magic beast cores and looked up at him. Are you sure this is the price? Miss, this is definitely the cheapest price. The young man nodded hard, with a sincere look. You can rest assured and buy it. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes as her vision swept one round. She had roughly guessed why the young man dared to be so unscrupulous, selling the magic beast cores at a high price. Because in the entire market, she estimated that there was only one magic beast core stall. The only magic beast core stall, if anyone was in urgent need of magic beast cores, they could only buy from this stall. Yiqing Luo curled her lips. Since this is the cheapest price, how about this? I have a batch of magic beast cores on hand, about 100 pieces, 30 over intermediate magic beast cores. The rest are all advanced magic beast cores. I will sell them to you at half of the price. How about that? Half. That was 5 silver coins for one piece of intermediate magic beast core, 25 silver coins for one piece of advanced magic beast core. Yiqing Luo's words had just ended. The young man's expression suddenly changed as he slammed the table. Are you deliberately finding fault? He slammed the table, and immediately a large group of people dressed in the same attire rushed out from all directions. There were at least 20 people. They surrounded Yiqing Luo and the stall owner together. Their fiendish looks were extremely horrifying. Miss, how dare you make fun of my Iron Blood Warrior stall? If I don't teach you a good lesson today, how will I have the face to continue living in the marketplace? Predator? What kind of name is that? But Yiqing Luo had roughly guessed that this should be a gang who robbed and sold forcefully. As soon as the young man slammed the table, more than 20 people appeared. It was obvious that this was not the first time they had done something like this. In the entire market, there was only one monster core stall. It was most likely this group of people who had forcefully chased away all the other monster core stalls. Unexpectedly, the first stall she visited was a black-hearted stall. His luck was truly unparalleled. The conflict here immediately attracted the attention of the passers-by. The stall owners next door shook their heads helplessly. The predators have caught another young lady. These people are really too shameless. If we don't buy them, we will be forced to buy them. This is basically robbery. If this goes on, our marketplace's reputation will be ruined. That's right. Recently, our business has been implicated. If this goes on, I will have to change a place to set up my stall. Chapter 451. The young man's icy cold gaze glanced at those stalls who were discussing. I don't mind letting you change a place to set up your stall now. Those stall owners instantly kept quiet, not daring to open their mouths. The young man retracted his gaze in satisfaction as he sneered at this young lady who looked like she didn't even have the strength to truss a chicken. Young lady, didn't your family tell you that when you're outside, you have to keep a low profile and be careful? He stood up and walked towards Yiqing Luo. His gloomy cold eyes were like a snake as it wrapped tightly around Yiqing Luo's face. Why don't you go and find out what kind of people we Iron Blood Warriors are to actually find trouble with me? The young man suddenly stretched out his hand towards Yiqing Luo as an evil smile appeared on his face. Young lady, you have 100 over magical beast cores on you? Let brother go and find where those magical beast cores are hidden. Although he said that, but his pair of hands directly extended towards Yiqing Luo's chest. Yiqing Luo's expression sunk, but before she could make a move, a gust of cold wind suddenly blew from her back. The young man in front of her gave a dull moan as his body was sent flying by someone. He landed entirely on the magical beast core stall, only to hear the sound of the stall shattering as the magical beast cores scattered all over the ground. Who is who? The young man had just opened his mouth when he spat out a mouthful of blood with a wah sound. He clutched his chest as his entire body was in so much pain that he couldn't stand up. Yiqing Luo's waist was encircled tightly by a strong and powerful arm. Her delicate and soft body was brought into the man's warm and broad embrace. DMO, Xian narrowed his long peach blossom eyes as a cold glint flashed past. He stared coldly at the young man's hand, silently pondering on how to cripple his hand. The young man's face turned pale, and under DMO Xian's gaze, he couldn't help but shiver. Do you know who we are? We are Iron Blood Warriors men. Those 20 overmen who surrounded them berated coldly when they saw their own boss injured. Following that, those 20 overmen held their weapons tightly as they charged towards Yi-Ching Luo's direction. The other party was just a man and a woman, and they looked delicate and weak. Even if that man was a cultivator, he shouldn't be able to defeat 20 over of them. With that thought in mind, everyone's attacks became fiercer. Sure enough, when they attacked, they saw the man who had just sent their boss flying suddenly let go of the woman's hand. He threw the woman to the ground and flew into the crowd. Are you afraid now? Facing the joint attack of more than 20 people, even the most powerful, profound practitioner will be frightened to the point that his legs would turn to jelly, not to mention that he was just an ordinary-looking man. Husband and wife are birds of the same forest, but when disaster strikes, they fly separately. These words were indeed true. The 20 or so people did not show any mercy. They directly slashed at the woman's face. Although it was a pity to lose this beauty, but if they could save the face of the predators, what kind of woman couldn't they get? However, just when they thought they could easily take this woman's life, they saw the corner of the woman's lips curl up into an extremely enchanting smile. That pair of enchanting eyes that seemed to be able to hook one's soul shone with an intoxicating luster. Yi-Ching Luo's cold eyes narrowed slightly, and with a flip of her palm, the red feather fan landed in her palm. Her 5 fingers moved, and the feather fan opened up. Profound chi gathered, and a whirlwind swept towards those 20 overmen. That whirlwind was originally light and had no lethality at all. But the minute it neared those 20 overmen, it instantly opened its bloody mouth and swallowed those 20 overmen. Chapter 452. This scene not only stunned those 20 over people who were lying on the ground. Even the stall owners around them were shocked. This extremely beautiful, skinny little young lady was actually so powerful. Just a wave of her fan, and she overturned these 20 over people onto the ground. Everyone's gazes towards Yi-Ching Luo changed. The stall owner by the side was stunned for some time before he regained his senses as he stammered, "Young lady, these people are all from the Iron Blood Warriors. You'd better hurry and bring your husband away. If you're caught by the Iron Blood Warriors, you'll definitely die." Husband? Yi-Ching Luo subconsciously turned her head back and looked at the crowd, at that outstanding figure. His lips were curled into a smile, and that ordinary-looking face, under his outstanding temperament, was dyed with a layer of unique charm. That pair of peach blossom eyes revealed a trace of crafty ridicule. Following that, his thin lips opened slightly as he spat out 2 words soundlessly, "Wife." Yi-Ching Luo instantly felt her cheeks burning hot as she rolled her eyes at him fiercely and retracted her vision. The stall owner looked at the couple's flirtatious expression and became even more anxious. "Don't you believe me? The Iron Blood Warriors are one of the 4 great families. Eldest young Master Yuchi's team. They want to register as a mercenary group, and if you offend the Iron Blood Warriors, the Yuchi family will not let you off." This stall owner apparently saw that the Iron Blood Warriors had harmed so many innocent people, so he was trying his best to persuade them. Yi-Ching Luo revealed a smile as she nodded slightly at the stall owner. "Thank you for your information. I know what to do." Yuchi family? Ever since she joined hands with the Mu brothers to cripple Yuchiya, she hadn't heard any news about the Yuchi family for a long time. This eldest young master of the Yuchi family, the Iron Blood Warriors boss? Yi-Ching Luo gave a cold laugh. Just a Yuchi family. She totally didn't care about them. Yi-Ching Luo directly turned around and walked towards Di Emotion. She had just taken her first step when she heard Tong Ziqing's furious voice coming from not too far away. "You're simply too much. Trying to cheat us of our money? Damn, still want to make a move? You really think we don't dare to make a move?" Immediately after, the sound of smashing stalls resounded. The predator? What the hell was that? Very impressive. Let me tell you, even if your boss is here today, I will still beat him up. This was Kitty Lee's voice. I said I won't buy it, so I won't buy it. Do you think that we 3 girls are easy to bully? People like you don't deserve sympathy. Hearing this voice, Yi-Ching Luo was stunned. Wow, not bad. Under Tong Ziqing's guidance. And I Rupin also dared to cause trouble. Another predator. Yiqing Luo could totally guess the reason why they were quarreling. Perhaps they were also forced to buy things. These three girls had quite a temper. Being forced to buy something, it was only natural that they were in a bad mood. It seemed like the conflict between them and the predators could not be resolved today. Yiqing Luo pulled Dmo Xian along and rushed towards the direction of the sound. Tong Ziqing and the other two were surrounded by more than 20 people. The three of them immediately made their move and wrestled with the group of people. Beside them was a stall which sold various kinds of clothes made from bee skin. All of them had been swept onto the ground, and in the process of the fight, they were trampled all over. Kitty Lee's nose twitched as she smelled Yiqing Luo's scent. She used her claw to slap away the person who was rushing towards her. Sister, sister, she swayed her body and pounced towards Yiqing Luo. Chapter 453. As Kitty Lee's ears and tail were unable to be kept, Yiqing Luo made some small changes to her clothing design and added a loose black robe. Normally, it would be impossible to see her tail. But at this moment, seeing Yiqing Luo's excitement made her wag her tail uncontrollably. His black robe fluttered at an extremely high frequency. Yiqing Luo naturally saw Kitty Lee's tail wagging nonstop as she couldn't help but laughed out lightly. Although the beastmen maintained their human form, they still retained their animal habits. Kitty Lee pounced forward and was just about to hug Yiqing Luo's waist tightly. Suddenly, an arm appeared out of thin air and stopped her. Kitty Lee lowered her head and looked at the hand that was placed across her waist. She followed the direction of the hand, meeting Dmo Xian's pair of smiling, yet not smiling eyes. Kitty Lee's ears immediately pricked up as her body stiffly distanced herself from Dmo Xian. Don't scare her, she's just a child. Yiqing Luo rolled her eyes at Dmo Xian, pushed his hand away, and walked towards Kitty Lee. Dmo Xian followed closely behind. No, you can only let me hug you, no one else, not even a woman. Damn it, wasn't this a little too much? Yiqing Luo couldn't be bothered with him and held Kitty Lee's hand. Kitty, what's going on? Seeing Yiqing Luo taking the initiative to go forward, Kitty Lee's startled expression immediately turned joyous as she rubbed her head against Yiqing Luo's arm. Sister, it's all right, just a small matter. Leave it to us. After rubbing, Kitty Lee revealed a satisfied smile. Then he charged into the battle again and knocked out a person with a single claw strike. There was a kind of feeling of performing in front of Yiqing Luo. In a short while, the three of them had already dealt with the 20 or so people. Tong Ziqing clapped her hands and snorted coldly. Unscrupulous merchants like you, I can play you to death in minutes. As she spoke, she lifted her foot and stomped on the stall owner's chest. The owner of the animal hide stall was in pain from the beating. When he saw the kick, he was so scared that tears flew out of his eyes. Heroine, please spare my life. Spare my life. I was forced by the eldest young master of the Yuchi family. Ugh. Before he could finish his words, he heard a muffled groan. A dagger was stabbed into the neck of the stall owner. Fresh blood immediately spurted out. The stall owner breathed his last. Tong Ziqing's face immediately turned pale. She immediately retracted her leg and staggered back a few steps. And I Rupin supported her with a frightened look on her face. Although Tong Ziqing's power was considered to be above average among the students in Devil class. But after all, that was only limited to the Devil class. Towards the outside world, all the students in the Devil class did not understand it all. It was one thing for them to play around normally, but when they saw a dead person, these young girls were all frightened. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes and looked towards the direction where the dagger flew from. A dazzling ray flashed past, and Yiqing Luo's expression congealed. Her footsteps swayed as she grabbed Tong Ziqing and Ni Ruo Pan with one hand and flung them to one side. He unfurled the feather fan in his hand, flipped it, and shot it out. With a ding sound, the feather fan seemed to have collided with something in the air. A dagger fell to the ground. Yiqing Luo's fingers moved, and the feather fan made a turn, returning back into Yiqing Luo's hand. The direction from which the dagger was thrown was a group of people. It could absolutely be said to be vast and mighty. At least, there were more than 100 of them, and all of them were wearing the same clothes as these Iron Blood warriors. Chapter 454. Yiqing Luo frowned. There was an extremely disgusting feeling coming from this person. Momentarily, she wasn't able to describe what kind of feeling this was. The surrounding stall owners immediately picked up the stalls in front of them and ran away. Young Master Yuchi is here. Eldest young Master Yuchi is here. This stance seemed as though they had seen an evil spirit from hell. Eldest young Master Yuchi? Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes as she gazed at the leader. Indeed, his brows and Yuchi Yu's were similar. Who dares to be so arrogant in the marketplace? Are you looking down on us, Iron Blood warriors? A man walked out from behind Yuchi Peng as he looked at the people lying on the ground, as he pointed towards Yiqing Luo's direction and berated her sternly. Whereas that Yuchi Peng's eyes were sinister, shooting out a biting cold glint as he stared at Yiqing Luo without blinking. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased even tighter. After being stared at by this man, that disgusting feeling became even thicker. You Iron Blood warriors are simply black merchants. Count yourself lucky that I didn't beat you to death. Kitty Lee waved her little fists as her petite face was filled with anger. Tong Ziqing coldly glanced at the hundreds of people, and the corners of her mouth curled up into a cold arc. You even dare to rob and sell to us? Only you black merchants are allowed, and we're not allowed to beat up black merchants? Is there no law in this West Continent? In the marketplace, we Iron Blood warriors are the law. That man gave a cold harumph as he was arrogant and egotistical. You bunch of stinky lasses who are still wet behind the ears. Let us teach you what is called the law. His arm moved, and those 100 over people behind him all pressed towards Yiqing Luo and the others. The surrounding customers who were watching the show, or the stall owners, all started to hide at one side to protect themselves. Not long later, these 100 over people formed several circles, surrounding Yiqing Luo and the others. But these few young ladies, none of their expressions changed. They coldly swept a glance at the 100 over people who were crowding around, as their faces surfaced an excited look. Yuchi Peng's sinister eyes faintly flashed past a treacherous glint which made one flustered. At this moment, the girls who were surrounded suddenly moved like a bolt of lightning, darting among the 100 people. These 100 or so people didn't care about these delicate young girls at all. They were just putting on an act to scare them. All of them held their weapons and did not put much thought into it. When the girls began to move, the 100 or so people were shocked. However, by the time he reacted and counterattacked, it was already too late. Each of these 4 girls was fiercer than the last, especially the one with the red feather fan. His attacks were so ruthless that it made people wish they were dead. Moreover, the attacks of these 4 girls were extremely sinister and wretched. They were clearly united to defeat this group of people in front of them. By the time the predators had assembled a team and were ready to counterattack, the 4 of them had split up at an extremely fast speed. His movements were swift and agile, and he accurately chose the weakest and weakest among them and began to defeat them one by one. They couldn't react in time. After a few repetitions, the 100 over people in front of these 4 young ladies weren't even considered as fart. The man beside Yuchi Peng was anxious as his face turned ashen. What's going on? How could these young ladies possibly defeat these 100 over cultivators who had been handpicked? They clearly looked weak and frail. Even their profound chi seemed so weak. How could they possibly defeat his 100 over brothers? Chapter 455. There were still 10 over people left standing, and the minute they heard that they should stop, they scampered away faster than monkeys. These 4 young ladies were just too damn ferocious. If they continued fighting, they would definitely end up like the others, lying on the ground, unable to get up. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes as she fixed her gaze on Yuqi Peng through the crowd, as though she was secretly wondering what he was up to. But she saw Yuqi Peng raise his arm. Let's go. That simple word seemed to be wrapped in a layer of frost. That man's face beside Yuqi Peng instantly sunk. How can we leave? These little sluts have hurt so many of our brothers. If we don't get back at them, how are the Iron Blood Warriors going to continue living in the future? Yuqi Peng seemed as though he hadn't heard that man's words as he placed his hands behind his back and turned around to leave. The remaining dozen or so people immediately followed behind Yuqi Peng with their tails between their legs. That man was left standing at his original spot as he flew into a rage. Yuqi Peng, this Duke agreed to join your Iron Blood Warriors in order to do something big in the West Continent. How dare you treat this Duke in this way? Do you believe that this Duke will make your Iron Blood Warriors unable to walk on? After that man finished howling, he placed his hands on his waist as he puffed out his chest, looking extremely complacent. In front, Yuqi Peng, who was leaving, stopped in his tracks. He slowly turned his head back, and the expression on his face was still that sinister and strange. Duke Jing, Iron Blood Warriors, is currently registering for the mercenary group, and it's not advisable to gather to create trouble. Otherwise, it will affect the mercenary group's development. That pale, thin lips opened and closed. Although it was an explanation, but it didn't sound too much respect, but it wasn't impolite either. When that young man who was addressed as Duke Jing heard that, the rage on his face instantly dissipated. He raised his dimples as he rubbed his nose in satisfaction. That's right, that's right. For a mercenary group, this Duke will let these little sluts off and let them live for a few more days. Saying that, he immediately jogged up to Yuqi Peng's footsteps as he followed beside him. Duke Jing is indeed a righteous person. Yuqi Peng's lips twitched as he revealed a gentle smile. Yiqing Luo saw it clearly from afar. That smile didn't reach his eyes. Instead, it revealed a sense of strangeness. Duke Jing's face revealed a complacent smile as he placed his hands on his waist and said delightfully, "That's of course. Duke Jing?" Enrich Pan muttered softly. "I've heard news about Duke Jing. He is the monarch's nephew, and his father is an old general in the West Continent. When Duke Jing was 8 years old, he died in the battlefield, and the monarch sympathized with him. In order to repay the old general, he brought him back to the palace and conferred him the title of Duke Jing. Perhaps because of his guilt towards the old general, the monarch dotes on him a lot. The monarch's nephew? Spoiled by the monarch? He really doted on her quite a bit. He looked to be at least 20 years old, but the way he acted was like a child. This monarch was indeed a cunning fox. Bringing the old general's son who had died in the battlefield back to the palace to be conferred the title of prince, the unrestrained doting. Not only did it gain a good reputation, it also completely spoiled Duke Jing's temperament. Arrogant and conceited. After getting used to such a life, he would never have thoughts of avenging his father or rebelling. It was indeed a brilliant move. Spoiled child. No wonder this eldest young master Yuqi has him in his hands. When Tong Ziqing heard that, she scoffed coldly. Towards this kind of useless trash duke who bullied others, she had no interest at all. Didn't you hear the main point? Yiqing Luo's brows rose slightly as she glanced sideways at Yuqi Peng's direction. They're going to register their mercenary group. Chapter 456. Group leader is Yuqi family's eldest young master, and the sugar daddy is the monarch's most beloved nephew. This backing, we can't be compared. Yiqing Luo laughed lightly. How can we not be compared? Enrich Pan held on to Yiqing Luo's arm as her gentle brows were tainted with a tinge of mischievousness. Our backing is the overlord. Who can be compared to our backing? All right, Enrich Pan, this lass, actually learned bad things from them, knowing how to tease her. Since the Iron Blood Warriors had already stopped, Yiqing Luo and the rest naturally wouldn't chase after them. Yuqi Peng was right about one thing. They were about to register their mercenary group now, and there couldn't be any accidents. If they really clashed with Yuqi Peng and the rest, it might possibly affect them, and they might not be able to register their mercenary group successfully. The few of them naturally didn't have the mood to shop, so they returned to the tea house, and each of them ordered a cup of tea, waiting for their brothers to return. The four of them in the marketplace earlier had already been spread around the entire marketplace from the stall owner's mouth. When the tea house boss brought over a pot of tea, he stared at the few of them. "You few young ladies, newborn calves aren't afraid of tigers. You don't know the ferociousness of the bunch of iron blood warriors." The tea house boss saw these few young ladies looking fresh and pretty as he couldn't help but worriedly said a few more sentences. "Today they are rushing to register their mercenary group, so they will let you off. But after they finish registering..." The tea house boss paused as he lowered his voice. "They will absolutely not let you off. You have to be careful. Thanks for the reminder." Yiqing Luo could tell that the tea house boss was worried about her, as her lips curled upwards. The tea house boss took a few glances at them as he shook his head and sighed as he went to busy himself with the other tables. Something happened. Long Yunjian, who had been silently drinking his tea, suddenly opened his mouth. That pair of azure blue eyes stared straight at Yiqing Luo's face. "Small matter." Yiqing Luo waved her hand disapprovingly. "Small matter?" Long Yunjian's brows creased as he placed the teacup heavily on the table. "Surrounded by 20 over people, and all of them have weapons in their hands. Is this considered a small matter? Haven't you been drinking tea here? How did you know that I was surrounded by 20 over people?" "I heard about it." Long Yunjian's eyes wandered as he unnaturally shifted his vision away, falling onto the man who was drinking tea elegantly by Yiqing Luo's side. "I also heard that when you were surrounded by 20 over people, the overlord pushed you into those people and stood among the crowd, as though it was none of his business." When he said the last few words, he was obviously a little angry, gnashing his teeth as he spat out each word. Yiqing Luo was stunned for a moment before she reacted. "You've misunderstood, Ashieni." Before she could finish speaking, she felt her waist tighten. The man beside her had already pulled her into his arms. The man's ink-black hair cascaded over her body like a cloud of smoke. She could feel a man's chin on her shoulder. "Speaking of which, as the class monitor, didn't you also choose to stand by and watch when Lil Luo Air was surrounded?" The man's deep voice was like a ghost as it sounded beside her ear. Long Yunjian's face darkened, and the hand holding the teacup tightened. "This is different. It's indeed different." DMO Xian nodded his head in agreement as his peripheral vision casually casted a glance at Long Yunjian. "I'm Lil Luo Air's future husband. Indeed, cannot be compared to me." "You." Long Yunjian's heart was filled with restless anger as it surged up once again. He had always been calm and could deal with anything calmly. Chapter 457. Long Yunjian could tell that DMO Xian was intentionally saying that he was watching with folded arms. The motive was to warn himself that he was Yiqing Luo's future husband. But why would DMO Xian give him such a warning? Long Yunjian frowned, unable to understand. "You? What nonsense are you talking about?" Yiqing Luo raised her fist and pounded on DMO Xian's chest. Even she could feel that DMO Xian was intentionally targeting Long Yunjian. "Am I talking nonsense?" DMO Xian's 5 fingers clasped her lower jaw. His long and narrow peach blossom eyes were filled with spring water. "In future, we will get married, and I will become your husband. Don't tell me. Shouldn't I be the future husband?" Yiqing Luo's face was flushed red uncontrollably. Her hands clutched DMO Xian's lapel. In order to conceal the heat on her face, she bit her pink lips and whispered, "Who can tell what will happen in the future? Also, why are you saying this in front of the class leader and the others? You might be shameless, but I'm not. These are all your brothers. I want them to bear witness." DMO Xian's eyes overflowed with smiles as he caught hold of Yiqing Luo's little hand, which was randomly pounding on him, as he brought it to his lips and kissed it. "Ah, I saw a scene of dogs being abused as soon as I got here. My eyes are going blind. If I knew this would happen, I would have gone one more round. Madame Qing Luo and the Arch are always abusing the dogs whenever they don't get along." Not far away, the exaggerated howls of the youths could be heard. DMO Xian had changed his looks and Yi Qing Luo had specially instructed them not to call him Overlord outside. These youths directly called him the Arch. They had arranged to meet Yi Qing Luo at the tea house in 1 hour, and when they arrived, they saw the Overlord holding onto Madame Qing Luo's hand. That kiss was so beautiful that it made people want to draw this scene. Yi Qing Luo hurriedly withdrew her hand as she stared at Dmo Xian in annoyance and struggled to get up from his arms, pretending as though nothing had happened as she rushed towards those youngsters. "What have you all bought? Let me take a look." Dozens of youths waved the spoils of war in their hands, their faces full of smiles. The students of the Devil class gathered at the tea house one by one. The huge tea house was soon filled to the brim. There were also many people standing outside the tea house, holding their teacups. They were talking about the things they had bought. Yi Qing Luo bought some paper and brush from the art stall opposite the tea house and pasted their names on the items which these youngsters had bought and placed them into the profound phoenix ring in batches. While listening to their conversation, it seemed that apart from her, Tong Ziqing, and the other two, no one else had encountered the black merchants of the predators. Yi Qing Luo tidied up the youngsters' purchases, and the group prepared to head towards the Mercenary Association. Yi Qing Luo settled the bill with the tea house boss and walked behind. She had just walked out of the tea house when she saw the opposite art stall owner holding on to 2 scrolls as he walked towards Yi Qing Luo. "Young lady, you're the first child who dared to lay a hand on the Iron Blood Warriors. Those of us who set up stalls in the marketplace have been bullied by them, so your actions today have helped us to vent our anger." He passed the scroll to Yi Qing Luo with both hands. "This is a little token of my appreciation. I hope your team will become stronger and stronger." Yi Qing Luo opened one of the paintings, and after she saw what was drawn on it, her cheeks flushed red instantly as she furiously closed the scroll and stuffed it into Dmo Xian's arms. Following that, her little figure scuttled towards the group in front. The art stall owner couldn't help but burst out laughing as he gazed at the direction where Yi Qing Luo disappeared. It's great to be young. Chapter 458. On the scroll, there was a man wearing half a mask, with a devastatingly beautiful woman in his arms. Although he was wearing a mask, but the pair of eyes that were revealed were like peach blossoms, making one intoxicated. Especially the contours of his chin, coupled with that pale, thin lips, it was extremely alluring. No matter how one looked at it, it was filled with infinite, peerless elegance. The man held the lady's slender jade hand as he placed it by his lips and kissed it. The lady's face was bashful, as her pair of charming eyes rippled like spring water. The man's brows rose slightly, as his eyes were filled with affection, as his entire face appeared extremely gentle. That gaze seemed to place the lady in his heart, doting and loving, as though she was a treasure. On the side of the scroll, there were a few flamboyant words: "Holding your hand, growing old together." Dmo Xian slowly closed the scroll, as his mind was filled with Yi Qing Luo's bashful face, as though she was escaping, as his thin lips opened and closed, spilling out a few soft laughs. "Thank you. I will treasure it well." Dmo Xian raised his hand as he cupped his fist towards the stall owner, expressing his gratitude sincerely. The art stall owner took a panoramic view of Dmo Xian's expression, and his face was filled with a satisfied smile. "My greatest hobby is to preserve the world's most beautiful scenes forever, as long as you like it." I like it very much." After strolling one round in the marketplace, the youngsters' enthusiasm had yet to dissipate. In less than an hour, the group of them had already arrived at the Mercenary Association. Although it was just a branch of the Mercenary Association, but looking around, within 100 miles radius, it was the Mercenary Association's territory. Majestic atmosphere, the glazed tiles under the sunlight, sparkling with luster. The 30 feet tall door, open to both sides, was enough to accommodate 20 over people to enter at the same time. 2 guards wielding long spears, dressed in sturdy armor, stood upright, and one look and one knew that they were cultivators of mystic profound grade and above. On both sides of the guards, there were two statues of white tigers. That open mouth, revealing sharp fangs, was vivid and lifelike. Through the open door, one could see the main hall of the Mercenary Association. In front of the long queue, there was a row of 3 missions displayed on the wall, indicating various grades of missions. Mercenary group leaders lined up to receive missions. This was the first time the youths had seen such a splendid place. Each and every one of them raised their heads in amazement and stared at the Mercenary Union with widened eyes. This is too big. It was too dazzling. In the future, would they become one of them? They were so excited that their hearts were about to jump out of their mouths. Yiqing Luo looked at the youngster's envious gazes as her lips curled into a warm smile. No matter. Not too long later, you will own a place which is even more glorious than this place. The youngsters' gazes were resolute as they looked at Yiqing Luo. The hot blood in their bodies was already burning. Amen, we believe you. Yiqing Luo smiled as she strode towards the Mercenary Association's main entrance. Stop! With a stern shout, the 2 guards stretched out their long spears, blocking Yiqing Luo and the other's path. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes. Long Yinzhan frowned and looked at the 2 of them coldly. If you want to enter the Mercenary Union, each person has to pay 10 gold coins. The guard said expressionlessly. 10 gold coins? 10 per person? F*CK. Was it really a good idea to rob the Mercenary Guild so openly? 10 per person, and there were 60 over of them. That would be 600 over gold coins. No, not right. This is robbery. Do you really think we don't know the Mercenary Association's regulations? Why haven't I heard that we need to pay gold coins to enter the Mercenary Association? Ruo Pan shouted coldly. Ever since she found out that they were going to set up a mercenary group, Ruo Pan specially inquired about some registration matters in the Mercenary Association, but she had never heard that they needed to pay gold coins to enter the Mercenary Association. Chapter 459. Now you have to pay the gold coins. The guard snorted coldly with an arrogant expression. If you can't pay the gold coins, then get lost. Don't block the door. You. Ruo Pan stomped her feet in anger. You guys are doing this on purpose. The guard swept a disdainful glance at her, and finally set his sight on Yiqing Luo. After seeing Yiqing Luo's stunning face, an evil smile appeared on his face. Little beauty, it's not impossible to go in, if you can accompany us, brothers. Ah! Before the guard could finish his words, he felt a sharp pain coming from his mouth. Immediately, a thick smell of blood came from his mouth. He coughed violently and spat out a mouthful of blood and a few broken teeth. The other guard's face sunk as he immediately stabbed his long spear towards Yiqing Luo and bellowed, How dare you create trouble in the Mercenary Association? Are you tired of living? The guard who was beaten up had yet to pull him back. He didn't even see who was the one who gave the slap on his mouth and suffered it. These people were not people to be trifled with. Only, his teeth had fallen out from the slap, and he couldn't even complete a simple sentence. The guard who rushed forward with the long spear was directly kicked out. He went through the main door and fell into the main hall of the Mercenary Association. The group of group leaders who were queuing up were stunned. The surrounding guards heard the news, and a group of people immediately rushed over. The guard's internal organs were in pain from the fall, and he spat out a few mouthfuls of blood. His fingers trembled as he pointed to the door and let out an ah sound. A group of guards looked towards the direction and saw 60 over young men and women standing at the door, and a guard who was covering his face and was in a sorry state. Very quickly, a captain dressed in a guard uniform with an additional badge on his shoulder and a few white feathers on his hat swiftly walked over. Who's the one creating trouble in the Mercenary Association and looking down on the authority of the Mercenary Association? You're just in time. I like to ask, when do we have to pay 10 gold coins per person to enter the Mercenary Association? Yiqing Luo sneered as her eyes turned sharp. That gaze was like a sharp knife, piercing over fiercely. The captain only felt a chill in his heart. He immediately looked at the guard who had his teeth broken. The guard covered his mouth. His hands were covered in blood. He shook his head furiously, feeling extremely wronged. The captain of the guards frowned as he led a team of guards towards Yiqing Luo. This young lady, our guards are all specially selected guards, and their quality is extremely high, so they will absolutely not lie. So, you're saying that I'm deliberately causing trouble? Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes as she laughed softly. I led a bunch of brothers to come all the way to the Mercenary Association, not to register a mercenary group, but to create trouble. She raised her head, revealing a beautiful smile on her exquisite face. Captain, give me a reason. What kind of enmity do I have with the mercenary union? I came all the way here just to cause trouble. The guard captain was rendered speechless by this question. He had worked here for dozens of years, and the Mercenary Association had always been a place that was highly respected by profound practitioners. This group of people who wore the same clothes and were about the same age were obviously here to register as a mercenary group. Normal people would not cause trouble in the mercenary guild, but as the captain of the guards, he had extreme trust towards his own men. The two of us guards have no enmity with you. There are so many people coming to the Mercenary Association to register as mercenary groups and to take on missions. Why are you the only one to pay gold coins? Chapter 460. This question, I think it's more trustworthy to let your guard answer it. Yiqing Luo licked her lips as her lips curled into an enchanting, cold smile. At the same time, her figure flashed. Everyone only had time to see a black afterimage. By the time they fixed their eyes on her, Yiqing Luo had already appeared in front of that guard, with one hand clutching onto his neck. Her slender fingers clasped tightly onto his artery. The sharp fingertips made that guard felt a piercing pain on his neck. The guard wanted to struggle, trying his best to pull, but the force on his neck suddenly increased, and his hand instantly went limp. His entire face was flushed red from suffocation. Miss! The guard captain's eyes congealed. To make a move on his subordinate right in front of him, this was simply looking down on his existence. The guard captain waved his palm, and a group of guards immediately surrounded Yiqing Luo's direction. Qing Luo, Yin Xiaoyi's face sunk as she was about to make a move. A clear voice was heard. No need to fight. Leave it to Lil Luo. Yin Xiaoyi was stunned as she frowned at DMO Xian, but there are so many of them. No matter how powerful Qing Luo is, these are after all guards who had been through the battlefield. If it's Lil Luo, there's absolutely no problem. His confident words caused the restless people to gradually calm down. Standing in front, the expressionless Long Yunzhan's expression congealed slightly. He'd seen it all. Earlier, when that guard spoke obscenities to Yiqing Luo, the one who broke that guard's teeth was DMO Xian. Thinking back to the marketplace, he used the excuse of being at the tea house. But in actual fact, he was following behind Yiqing Luo, seeing her being surrounded by that magical beast core stall owner and 20 over Iron Blood warriors. At that time, DMO Xian took action because the magical beast core stall owner attempted to molest Yiqing Luo. Suddenly, Long Yunzhan seemed to have understood something. DMO Xian wasn't watching by the side, nor was he standing in the crowd to watch. What DMO Xian gave Yiqing Luo was free love. When Yiqing Luo had a conflict with others, DMO Xian was more concerned than anyone else. But he let Yiqing Luo settle it. It was because of his trust towards Yiqing Luo, and also because he wanted to give her a chance to grow. Captain, I just want to prove that we just want to register as a mercenary group. Yiqing Luo glanced sideways at the guard captain. Or perhaps, Captain is trying to cover up your crime on behalf of your subordinate? The captain of the guards who was charging forward immediately stopped in his tracks. Yiqing Luo's matter had already attracted the attention of the surrounding mercenary groups. At this moment, they surrounded him and pointed at him. If he really forcefully took Yiqing Luo down, he was afraid the mercenary guild would never be able to wash away this stain. He waved his hand and ordered a group of people to stop. What a sharp-tongued girl. Good. I'll give you this chance. The guard captain's eyes were filled with anger as he glared at the guard. You explain to me clearly what exactly is going on. The guard groaned in pain. His mouth was burning with pain, and his neck was suffocating. He blushed and shook his head furiously. Yiqing Luo's fingers loosened a little as her lips curled into a chilly smile. Speak. Say every single word clearly. If there's any falsehood in your words, this lady will take your dog life right now. If it wasn't for the fact that she was leading a group of brothers today and had already put on their group's uniform, Yiqing Luo couldn't be bothered to go through so much trouble. They were a team that wanted to register as a mercenary group. Before the registration, there must not be any stain. Chapter 461. Captain, save me. She's despising the Mercenary Association's authority. The guard endured the pain as he spat out every single word. Because he was missing a tooth, his words were leaky and his words were unclear. But if he listened carefully, he would be able to understand his words. We were just stopping them to do a routine interrogation. But she made a move. Captain, save me. The guard captain narrowed his eyes. What else do you have to say now? Still not letting him go. You're at death's door and still want to cover up for the mastermind? Have you forgotten who is your master? Yiqing Luo's fingers suddenly clenched tightly as that pair of enchanting eyes were filled with a thick, austere aura. Her chilly laughter was as though the god of death had descended. Really pitiful, this captain who was worried about your life. Just for a little bit of benefit, he didn't hesitate to cheat the captain who had always trusted you. This kind of dog, you don't need it. The lady's voice was sweet and melodious, but that tone was filled with a thick, murderous aura. The guard felt the life force in his body gradually disappearing. He opened his eyes wide in terror as he subconsciously looked towards the captain whose face was filled with rage. His heart was filled with shock, and Yiqing Luo's earlier words were lingering in his ears. The guard's lips trembled. I'll say. By the time Yiqing Luo let go, the guard spat out the words with difficulty. It's the Iron Blood Warriors. He gave us 10 silver coins and asked us to stop. Sister, be careful. Behind, Kitty Lee's panicked voice was heard. Yiqing Luo's peripheral vision saw a glaring ray coming toward her as she sensitively let go of the guard and instantly retreated a few steps backwards. She saw that guard lying limply on the ground. A dagger was stabbed into his chest. Although the guard was no longer breathing, but before he died, he said the words, Iron Blood Warriors, which was clearly heard by everyone. The guard captain ran up and carried the guard up with one hand. On seeing the dagger on the guard's chest, his expression sunk and turned extremely ugly. Iron Blood Warriors. They were actually from the Iron Blood Warriors. When did these young lads and Iron Blood Warriors get in a conflict? Dagger. Yiqing Luo's eyes narrowed as her lips curled in ridicule. Throwing a dagger to silence him was indeed Yuqi Peng's method. She had roughly guessed in her heart that the mastermind behind these two guards looking for trouble was Yuqi Peng. But she was very curious why Yuqi Peng stopped her from entering the Mercenary Association. You guys again? Duke Jing also saw Yiqing Luo, and the smile on his face instantly turned into anger as he pointed at Yiqing Luo and howled, You're really like a lingering spirit that won't go away. After creating trouble in the marketplace, you came to the Mercenary Association to create trouble. While speaking, Yuqi Peng and the rest had already walked over. Yuqi Peng's face was calm, as if the person who had just killed the guard was not him. The corner of his mouth curled into an extremely shallow smile. Captain, these people are habitual troublemakers. There's no doubt about it. Although his words were soft, the threat and warning in his eyes were obvious. The guard captain's face was gloomy. Now that things had developed to this point, even the stupidest person would know exactly what was going on. But the captain of the guards took a look at the dead guard in his arms and then looked towards Yuqi Peng's direction, as well as Duke Jing's puffed-out chest with a face of warning. He fell silent. Chapter 462. The surrounding guards received the order and immediately released their profound chi. These guards were all cultivators who were carefully selected by the guard captain. All of their profound chi were at Mystic Profound 3rd grade and above. The highest had even reached Mystic Profound 7th grade. It was rumored that the Mercenary Association's guards numbered up to 1,000 and above. Cultivators with this kind of ability, with 1,000 over gathered together to protect the Mercenary Association's order, which ordinary person would dare to create trouble here? Yiqing Luo's lips curled into a chilly smile as her raging flame feather fan swayed gently. It was like a ball of leaping flame on her fingertips, burning continuously as it released a splendid color. The guard captain's vision fell onto that strange feather fan as his eyes instantly felt a piercing pain. His heart started to surge with uneasiness, but Yu Qi-peng had already walked to his side, bearing a faint smile as he gazed at him. Duke Jing puffed out his chest as he gesticulated. "Quickly go. Let's see how long this bunch of sluts can be arrogant for. Give them a good thrashing. Give them a good thrashing." The guard captain forcefully suppressed the uneasiness in his heart. Now that things had come to such a state, he could only brace himself and forcefully bring these people to the enforcement room. Yiqing Luo's vision went one round around the guards, and her 5 fingers moved as she was about to strike. Suddenly, a calm and clear voice was heard from behind. "This young patriarch wants to see how the upright and plain-spoken, fair and just guard captain is pressured by the Iron Blood warriors to take action against innocent people." Those guards who had already dashed in front of Yiqing Luo, upon hearing this voice, all of them tensed up as they subconsciously retracted their hands. When Devil Class's youngsters heard this voice, they all started to retreat as they turned back to look. They saw a lake-colored brocade long robe, with a refined and handsome appearance, playing with a green flute as he strolled over. As he walked, the young man twirled the green flute as his icy cold gaze fixed onto Yu Qi-peng. "What a good Iron Blood warrior. Your guts aren't small at all. You even dare to threaten the Mercenary Association's guard captain. This young patriarch wants to go to the Yuchi family and ask Patriarch Yuchi personally, since when did your Yuchi family have the rights to criticize the Mercenary Association?" When Yu Qi-peng saw the approaching person, his expression congealed. The captain's face turned pale as he took a look at the gloomy Yu Qi-peng behind him, and then looked at that young man who was already standing beside Yiqing Luo. The youth's words were like needles stabbing into the guard captain's body. The guard captain looked ashamed. "Young master," Yu Qi-peng and the rest also slightly bowed towards the young man. "Young master, this young master cannot accept such a gift." The young man sneered and curled his lips in disdain. "Young Master Yuchi's influence has even extended to the Mercenary Union. Perhaps this young master will have to listen to you." Yu Qi-peng's face, which had always maintained a smile, now had some cracks. Anyone could tell that what the predators had done in the Mercenary Union had angered young Master Imo Duke Jing, who was by the side, was instantly unhappy. He had always been the one who could walk sideways in the Western continent, and no matter where he went, he was the most awesome. Now, he actually met someone who was even more arrogant than him. Even he didn't dare to shout at Yu Qi-peng. This young patriarch Imo actually dared to use this kind of tone to talk to Yu Qi-peng. Duke Jing walked straight up as he raised his arm and pushed towards the young man's chest. "Who do you think you are? How dare you talk to our Iron Blood Warriors group leader in this way? Are you tired of living?" This hand had yet to touch the young man. Chapter 463. Duke Jing was in so much pain that his face turned white as he broke out in cold sweat. "Lowly person, how dare you attack this king? I'm going to kill you. Kill you." He was in so much pain that he sucked in a breath of cold air. At the same time, he yelled at the predators behind him. "Why aren't you capturing this lowly commoner for this king? This prince will bring him back to the palace." However, none of those people dared to take even half a step forward. Yu Qi-peng also lowered his head, pretending that he did not see this scene. Yiqing Luo's brows rose in interest as she kept her feather fan and returned to her own team. Who is this young man? He's not even afraid of offending his highness, but Yu Qi-peng is as cowardly as a dog. Yen Xiao, he stared at the youth, her eyes filled with curiosity. An eye pan bit her lips as she pondered for a moment. I've investigated before. The Mercenary Association's president is surnamed Mo, and Yuchi Peng calls him Young Master Mo. Then this person should be the president's son, the Mercenary Association's Young Master Mo Hansang. The Young Master of the Mercenary Guild? No wonder Yuchi Peng was terrified. Yin Xiao blinked her eyes, and her lips curled into a teasing smile. No matter how powerful eldest young Master Yuchi is, if he wants to establish a mercenary group and mingle in the mercenary union, in front of young Master Mo, he has to behave himself and be honest. Yiqing Luo laughed lightly. These words were indeed true. Although Yuchi Peng was the first young master of one of the four great profound practitioner clans, the Yuchi family, Yuchi Peng's strength was far from ordinary. But in the Mercenary Guild, he could only be the leader of the predators. If he were to walk out of the Mercenary Association and not establish any mercenary group, then his status would be above Mo Hanshang's. But he wanted the Iron Blood Warriors. He wanted this mercenary group. Then Mo Hanshang would be his superior, and he had the rights to tell Yuchi Peng what to do. This was the authority of the mercenary union. Qing Luo, do you know young Patriarch Mo? Yin Xiao asked curiously. Yiqing Luo shook her head. If he doesn't know us, then why would he help us? Yiqing Luo shrugged her shoulders, indicating that she had no solution. Mo Hanshang's appearance was not within her expectations. But from the looks of it, Mo Hanshang didn't have any ill intentions towards them. His vision then turned towards Mo Hanshang and the others. With one hand placed behind his back, his posture was elegant and calm as his eyes were filled with ridicule as he glanced sideways at Duke Jing, who was hugging his hands and crying out. He was very calm, completely disregarding the other party's identity. That's right, the predators are really amazing. Mo Hanshang's rosy red lips curled slightly as a cold arc of ridicule flashed past. Since the Iron Blood Warriors are so powerful, I believe that eldest young Master Yuchi doesn't need the Mercenary Association and will be able to build your own team. When these words came out, Yuchi Peng's face completely darkened. He took large strides to Duke Jing's side as he lifted his clothes and threw it towards the group of members behind him. Young Lord Mo, Duke Jing has just left the palace and doesn't know anything about the outside world. If he had offended young Lord Mo, I apologize on his behalf. Duke Jing? Mo Hanshang narrowed his eyes as he shot a glance at Duke Jing's direction as he scoffed. No wonder eldest young master was so arrogant these few days. So you've colluded with the imperial family. These words made Yuchi Peng's face turn green and white. Since Duke Jing's brain isn't working well, then this young patriarch shall be magnanimous and not be calculated with you. Mo Hanshang seemed as though he didn't see Yuchi Peng's gloomy expression as he continued talking. Let's do it like this. Eldest young master Yuchi, just apologize to these people and beg for their forgiveness, and this matter will be over. Chapter 464. The surrounding mercenary groups all sucked in a breath of cold air. Most of the mercenaries had heard of the predators before. Let's not talk about the reputation of the Iron Blood Warriors outside. Just recently, Yuchi Peng had been recruiting cultivators and even hooked up with Duke Jing to inject funds into the mercenary group. It was obvious that they were going to register a mercenary group. The other mercenary groups would naturally pay more attention and understand them. Hence, they had some understanding of Yuchi Peng's way of doing things. Asking him to apologize to this group of unknown brats? Do I have to beg for their forgiveness? This was no different from slapping him in the face in front of everyone. Yuchi Peng had just registered his mercenary group today, and if he were to apologize to Yiqing Luo and the others and beg sincerely, then the Iron Blood Warriors would not be able to raise their heads in the Mercenary Association in future. But Mo Hanshang was obviously grabbing onto Yuchi Peng and not letting go. This sentence seemed reasonable, but in reality, it forced Yuchi Peng into a dilemma. One was to offend Mo Hanshang. One was the pride of the predators. Right now, Yuchi Peng's heart was filled with resentment. Why did Mo Hanshang suddenly appear? To help that bunch of brats. What was the identity of this group of young men and women? Yu Peng thought back to when he was in the marketplace. He had handpicked over 100 profound practitioners, but in front of the four young ladies, they were so weak that they could not even withstand a single blow. Their tacit cooperation was as if they knew each other's movements. This was definitely not a tacit understanding that could be developed overnight. At that time, he only wanted to register as a mercenary group so that he could be the first to take on the new rare mission. After seeing the four girls' skills, in order to save time and register as a mercenary group as soon as possible, he stopped in time. Yu Peng saw that these young girls were dressed in the same attire, and there were many young boys and girls in the same attire walking back and forth. And the only way to the market was through the mercenary guild. Yu Peng guessed that these youngsters wanted to register as a mercenary group. Because of this, he made use of his own identity and sufficient benefits to bribe the two guards, preventing Yiqing Luo and the rest from entering the mercenary association to register their mercenary group. A strong intuition told Yu Peng that if these people were to register as a mercenary group, it would definitely become a hindrance to the predators. He had painstakingly spent a huge amount of energy and money to build the predators. They vowed to become the #1 mercenary group in the world. He would not allow anything to go wrong. Everything was going according to plan. But out of nowhere, in Mohan Shang, this Chang Yaojin appeared. What? Young Master Yuqi is unwilling? Imo Han Shang's brows rose as he teasingly curled his thin lips. Imo Han Shang, hate people who play tricks in my mercenary association the most. He paused, the smile on his face revealing a bit of eerie coldness. In particular, eldest young Master Yuqi killed my guard in front of my face. When Imo Han Shang said to this point, he intentionally dragged out the last syllable as he stopped his voice. The corners of Yu Peng's mouth twitched, his entire body trembling incessantly from anger. No matter how good he usually was at hiding his emotions, he could not hide the anger on his face at this moment. Young Master Yuqi, even if you stare your eyes out, it won't help. Imo Han Shang gave a cold laugh, as his voice suddenly turned as cold as ice, bribing the guards in the Mercenary Association, obstructing other groups from registering as mercenary groups, and even killing the guards. Just based on these 2 points, this young patriarch has the authority to chase you out of the Mercenary Association. You'll be blacklisted by the Mercenary Union. Chapter 465. In other words, the Predator mercenary group was destroyed, completely destroyed. Young Master Mo, no matter what, I am the young master of the Yuqi family. You should at least give face to the Yuqi family. The veins on Yu Peng's forehead bulged as he clenched his fists tightly, enduring the anger that filled his chest. I spit. Imo Han Shang spat out fiercely as he gave a disdainful snort. Face? If this young lord were to kill someone from your Yuqi family and then ask you for face, would you *King give me face? Yu Peng's face flushed red, his eyes filled with malice. You don't give Yu Peng face, but you have to give his king face. This duke is Uncle Monarch's most doted duke. When Duke Jing heard that, he hurriedly opened his throat to roar. Imo Han Shang sneered. Your face is even less valuable. Duke Jing's expression instantly changed as he bared his fangs and brandished his claws as he pounced towards Imo Han Shang. Yu Peng forcefully held him back as he ordered the Iron Blood Warriors members to grab hold of Duke Jing. Just as he was in a terrible predicament, a clear and melodious voice rang out. Young Master Mo, why don't you give me some face and leave this matter to me? At the entrance of the Mercenary Guild, a woman in a black outfit walked in. A sweet smile blossomed on her face. Her appearance was stunning, and her temperament was extraordinary, especially that pair of enchanting eyes, which shone with an intoxicating charm. Yu Peng frowned and stared coldly at the girl in front of him. With a single glance, he recognized that she was the most ruthless woman in the marketplace. Yiqing Luo calmly met Captain Qi Peng's gaze, step by step, walking gracefully and slowly, unperturbed. The instant Imo Han Shang saw Yi-Ching Luo, the cold arrogance on his face turned into a handsome and clean smile. Since young miss has opened your mouth, this young patriarch naturally has to give it to you. So, I'll leave it to you to handle. If eldest young master Yuchi isn't willing to accept your handling, then let this young patriarch handle it personally. He emphasized the last 4 words. Clearly, he was warning Yuchi Peng, or follow Yi-Ching Luo's instructions. Otherwise, he would follow his method and enter the blacklist. The surrounding mercenary groups stared at Yi-Ching Luo in astonishment, as they were totally certain that Mo Hanshang's appearance this time round was to stand up for Yi-Ching Luo. Everyone was silently guessing. What was this Yi-Ching Luo's identity? From her looks, could it be that young Master Mo was young Master Mo Hanshang? When this thought flashed past their minds, many mercenary groups started. From how Mo was protecting this young lady, there was this possibility. Yi-Ching Luo didn't bother about what the others thought. Yi-Ching Luo couldn't be bothered to guess why Mo Hanshang helped her. Yi Dragon Master Yangshang, Li, she said. You got he did said. Yi he said. You I said he. With that said, she shook her head with a look of pity. Young Master Yuchi, you just need to apologize to my party and hand over the first mission you've accepted. That will do. Yi, Chun Yi, Chi Yu, Yi, Ling, Shi, he thought. He. Apparently, he was anxious to register his mercenary group in the Mercenary Association. From those stall owners' words, it was obvious that Iron Blood Warriors had existed for a long time. They had never registered their mercenary group. But at this moment, the reason was so urgent. There was a possibility that Yuchi Peng had heard some news, and there would be a mission today, which made Yuchi Peng interested. Chapter 466. As expected, after she mentioned Yuchi Peng handing over the mission, Yuchi Peng's expression turned steely green. That pair of venomous eyes stared fiercely at Yi-Ching Luo. Yi-Ching Luo's long eyelashes fluttered as she innocently tilted her head. Eldest young Master Yuchi, why are you staring at me for? I'm giving you a way out of this embarrassing situation. If you're not willing, then just treat it as though I didn't say anything. That spirited eyes twinkled as they were clear and moist. That look, no matter how one looked at it, it seemed as though she was doing the Iron Blood Warriors good, especially making a compromise. When the surrounding mercenary groups saw the young lady's aggrieved look, their sympathy immediately overflowed as they all stood up for Yi-Ching Luo. This young lady has already taken a step back. Eldest young Master Yuchi, you should also take a step back. It's just a mission. Giving it to this young lady to protect your own mercenary group isn't a huge loss. The Iron Blood Warriors killed people in the Mercenary Association and instigated the guards to stop these young ladies from entering the Mercenary Association. This has already violated the Mercenary Association's regulations and can totally be blacklisted. Iron Blood Warriors are taking advantage of us. It wasn't easy for this young lady to establish a mercenary group. As the eldest young master of the Yuchi family, why must he be calculative with a young lass? These mercenary groups were mostly boorish and boorish people. On one side was a mercenary group with a strong backing and the royal family's investment. On the other side, there was a small group of yellow, profound Realm Xian practitioners who had come out of nowhere. Naturally, everyone's scales were tilted towards the weaker side, especially when Yi-Ching Luo's looks were peerless and she put on an innocent look. How would these mercenary groups remember the scene of Yi-Ching Luo interrogating the guards earlier? The crowd discussions made Yuchi Peng's face turn steely green and gradually turn pale. Yuchi Peng was very clear on how important reputation was to a mercenary group. If he were to give up on the Iron Blood Warriors and never step into the Mercenary Association ever again, he absolutely could not do it. The Iron Blood Warriors had spent so much effort, and only he himself knew the hardships involved. How could he bear to? But this mission, rare grade mission, if he were to hand it over, wouldn't it be a waste of time for him to bring his team to the Mercenary Union to register? Yuchi Peng, I feel that what they said makes sense. Duke Jing was grabbed by a few members, and by now, he had calmed down quite a bit as he finally became smart for once. Think about it. Apologize and hand over this mission. At least our Iron Blood warriors will be saved. There would always be rare missions in the future. But if we really let young Master Mo blacklist the Predator, we won't be able to keep our current mission. Duke Jing's words were right on point. Yu Qi-peng naturally understood this logic. But if they apologized, they would be lowering their heads to a small, unknown team. The reputation and prestige of the Predators would be greatly damaged. It also indirectly admitted that the Predators were causing trouble in the Mercenary Guild. This stain would always be with the Predators. Even if the Predators became the #1 mercenary group in the future, it would become a dark history for others to laugh at. As for this small team, but because of his magnanimity today, his name would spread throughout the mercenary world. Famous, good reputation. Yu Qi-peng's pupils suddenly constricted. He suddenly raised his head and stared at Yi Qing Luo's bright, smiling face as his heart tightened. Chapter 467. Mo Hanshang's appearance gave Yi Qing Luo a chance. Eldest young Master Yu Qi and Duke Jing's face was something which Mo Hanshang totally disregarded. But unfortunately, the minute Yi Qing Luo opened her mouth, Mo Hanshang was beaming with joy, and he even stood up for Yi Qing Luo without any reason. Yi Qing Luo's solution sounded as though she was wholeheartedly thinking for the Iron Blood warriors. She only wanted to turn the big problem into a small one and the small one into nothing. Moreover, she put on a saintly look, willing to forgive everything which they had done. But in actual fact, the one who benefited the most from this matter was Yi Qing Luo's group. Not only had they obtained this rare mission, they were also able to create a good reputation for their own mercenary group. From today onwards, there would probably be many mercenary groups in the mercenary world who were willing to be on good terms with this mercenary group, which was formed by young lads. As for himself, Iron Blood Warriors was the staircase which Yi Qing Luo had climbed up. Yu Qi-peng asked himself that he was adept in scheming, but today he had fallen into the hands of a young lass. Till now, he was still unable to tell that between Mo Hanshang and Yi Qing Luo, had they long known each other. His heart was filled with unwillingness, but Yu Qi-peng could only bear with it. Finally, he gave in. No matter what, the Iron Blood Warriors must be preserved. Where there's life, there's hope. A bunch of kids who hadn't even grown their hair. He would deal with them in the future. Yu Qi-peng clenched his teeth tightly as he took out a scroll from his bosom and threw it into Duke Jing's arms. Go. Duke Jing caught the scroll as he looked at Yu Qi-peng in a daze. It took some time before he realized that he was asking him to apologize to Yi Qing Luo. Persuading was one thing, but to ask him, a dignified duke, to lower his head and apologize was another matter. His wrist was broken by Mo Hanshang, and he still wanted him to apologize? He had never suffered such humiliation in his entire life. Duke Jing, you're a duke and your face is bigger than mine. If you go, then it will show your sincerity. It will also show your status among the Iron Blood Warriors. Yu Qi-peng saw that Duke Jing's expression wasn't right as he lowered his voice and said that. Duke Jing was coaxed till he was elated and immediately had no more opinions. Holding the scroll, he walked towards Yi Qing Luo, and Duke Jing directly passed it over with a black face. The mission is for you. And for today's matter, this Duke represents the Iron Blood Warriors to apologize to you. What a simple-minded fellow. Yi Qing Luo snorted coldly and kept the scroll in her hand. She hadn't established a mercenary group yet, so she couldn't open the Mercenary Guild's mission scroll. Earlier Duke Jing and Yu Qi-peng's conversation, she had heard all. It seemed like her guess was right. The reason why Yu Qi-peng hurriedly registered his mercenary group was because of this mission, rare quest. He didn't know what level the mission was. But looking at the general standard of the Iron Blood Warriors, these youths in Devil class were definitely above them. Since Yu Qi-peng dared to accept this mission, He definitely had a well-thought-out plan. Since that was the case, the youths in Devil class should also be able to complete it. Yiqing Luo kept the mission into her bosom as her eyes were filled with a smile. So Duke Jing is the Iron Blood Warriors group leader. When Yuqi Peng heard this sentence, he gritted his teeth in anger. He took a deep breath. His expression was stiff and ashen as he walked over with large strides. His pair of cold eyes were filled with a biting, cold, killing intent. I, the leader of the Iron Blood Warriors, apologize to your team. A sneer flashed past Yiqing Luo's eyes. Chapter 468. Say? What could he say? What else could he say? He had many objections. However, he could only suppress these objections in his heart. This little slut, did she think that with Mo Han Shang as her backing, she could do whatever she wanted? Look at that expression. If I didn't know better, I would have thought that eldest young master Yuqi was preparing to find someone to kill me after I leave the Mercenary Association to snatch the mission scroll. Yiqing Luo pursed her pink lips as her quick-witted eyes were mixed with a sliver of fear. The surrounding mercenaries nodded in agreement. This kind of thing was not unheard of. Everyone could tell that Yuqi Peng's emotions were currently in a violent rage. Apparently, he had a deep grudge against Yiqing Luo. In front of Mo Han Shang, in order to ensure that his Iron Blood Warriors could continue on, he would lower his head to Yiqing Luo. But what if he left the Mercenary Guild? How is that possible? Yuqi Peng's face darkened, and he had the embarrassment of having his thoughts seen through. He shifted his gaze and raised his voice as he roared in panic. Yuqi Peng, am the eldest young master of the Yuqi family. I still have this bit of credibility. Yiqing Luo's lips curled into a cold smile. She was waiting for Yuqi Peng to say this sentence. Mo Han Shang's palms clapped as he placed it on Yuqi Peng's shoulder. Since that's the case, this young patriarch will believe you. In future, if anything happens to this bunch of young mercenary groups, this young patriarch will just place all onto the Iron Blood Warriors. That's the happy decision. The veins on Yuqi Peng's forehead throbbed. His face was completely devoid of any color. His eyes were already burning with rage, shooting out an intense fury. This was simply going too far. Just by looking at Yiqing Luo, who was the leader, one could tell that if this mercenary group was really established, it would absolutely not be a group that knew their place. In the future, he would definitely make many enemies. What's more, as a mercenary group, it was inevitable that something unexpected would happen when they were on a mission. Could it be that the predators had to take the blame for all this? This was simply forcing them, the Iron Blood Warriors, to protect Yiqing Luo and the others' safety. Too treacherous, too sinister. And Mo Han Shang seemed as though he couldn't see Yuqi Peng's rage burning as he directly turned his head towards Yiqing Luo, and his voice was clear and bright. Young lady, aren't you going to register your mercenary group? Go and line up with your brothers. Yiqing Luo cupped her hands in greeting as her lips curled into a grateful smile. Many thanks to young Patriarch Mo for being impartial and selfless, helping his brothers to obtain the opportunity to register a mercenary group. The Mercenary Guild exists to provide the best and most convenient service to all mercenary groups. Mo Han Shang waved his hand. One person's strength, no matter what, cannot be compared to the strength of an entire team. I hope that the Mercenary Association will be able to personally witness one strong team after another being established here, to achieve glory here. Yiqing Luo nodded in agreement. She and Mo Han Shang had the same viewpoint. No matter how strong a single person was, he couldn't be stronger than a team. Yiqing Luo's eyes lit up with a spark of conviction as her face beamed with smiles as she turned her head to look at the entrance, at those brothers and sisters. Brothers, the team that belongs to us, is officially established. He belongs to our team. Our team. Deafening voices came from the mouths of these boys and girls. Those young faces were filled with trust towards Yiqing Luo. In their bodies, their blood was boiling. Chapter 469. Long Yunjian was slightly stunned, looking at Yi Qing Luo's outstretched hands. His heart inexplicably sped up. Strange, why was his face suddenly burning up? He was a human dragon, and by right, his body temperature should always maintain a certain temperature. How could it possibly be burning up? Long Yunjian was still in a daze when Yin Xiao used her elbow to nudge him. Class monitor, what are you in a daze for? Are you too happy? Long Yunjian instantly regained his senses as his azure blue eyes blinked. Suddenly, he realized something as his gaze shot towards Yi Qing Luo's direction, and following that, he raised his eyes to look at the man beside him. DMO Xian's eyes were calm as he crossed his arms in front of his chest, and a pair of bewitching peach blossom eyes stared at Yi Qing Luo. That gaze seemed to be able to see everything in the world, and he could only see Yi Qing Luo alone. Long Yunjian's heart twitched fiercely with an indescribable strange feeling. He frowned. Why was it that recently? His body seemed to be not right, especially after Yi Qing Luo was assassinated and he revealed his blue dragon original form to save Yi Qing Luo. Something was amiss. Could it be? Was because he had transformed into a blue dragon? Long Yunjian bore with this strange feeling as he walked towards Yi Qing Luo's direction. Standing beside Yi Qing Luo, he slowly raised his eyes. His gaze was extremely indifferent, and his voice was as indifferent as usual. I had always wanted to bring my brothers to charge out for the #1 spot that belongs to us, to let you stand at the highest point and announce to the world that you're absolutely not trash. That calm voice, when he said these words, the excitement and joy on the youngsters' faces started to burn even more. Now it's time for us to take the first step towards our goal, to establish a mercenary group that belongs to us, our home. The youngsters' trembling voices once again rang deafeningly. We pledge our lives to follow group leader. The youngsters' four gazes met, and in each other's eyes, they saw the firm belief. They believed that one day in the future, they would be able to get rid of the title of trash and be revered by the world. This scene also influenced the surrounding mercenaries. What was the motive for everyone to establish a mercenary group in the first place? What was their original intention? After going through the wear and tear of time, experiencing the test of reality, in the end, the so-called mercenary group had already become a job to support their families. These youngsters were all emitting the ray of hope. He could see hope in them. Perhaps, after these youths formed their own mercenary group, they would be able to help them find the original intentions they had when they first formed their own mercenary group. Yi Qing Luo's charming eyes were filled with smiles as she tugged Long Yunjian's sleeve. The two of them walked together into the main hall and lined up behind those registered mercenary groups. Perhaps because of this interlude, the atmosphere in the mercenary guild fell into a strange sense of urgency. Everywhere was burning, that kind of blood-boiling feeling. The registrar deftly dealt with the people who came to register one after another, and after a cup of tea's time, it was Yi Qing Luo and Long Yunjian's turn. The registrar gave Long Yunjian a piece of white paper, which required the leader to fill in the registration information. When he saw the first column, Long Yunjian glanced sideways at Yi Qing Luo, mercenary group's name. Name? The meaning was she came up with names? Yi Qing Luo wanted to ask him to think about the name himself, but thinking of Long Yunjian's character, he would probably find it troublesome and directly write a devil class. Then, she would be tipsy. You? What name do you want? She could not bring herself to ask the last few words. Chapter 470. Because when Yi Qing Luo raised her eyes, she saw those 60 over youngsters outside the main hall, staring at her fervently. Their eyes were filled with hope. They had passed their faith to Yi Qing Luo. Suddenly, there was a heavy feeling on his shoulders. However, this kind of heaviness made her feel satisfied. Yi Qing Luo's gaze finally fell onto DMO Xian. Their four eyes met, and she saw the gentleness and encouragement in DMO Xian's eyes. This mercenary group's name would be decided by her. Yi Qing Luo's pink lips trembled as her slightly trembling voice slowly rang. The world, we will carve out a world that belongs to us. Her smile grew bigger by the corner of her lips, enchanting like a blooming rose. I promise you a world. Her slender wrist lifted up as Yiqing Luo stretched out her index finger, and in midair, one stroke at a time, she wrote down the two words the world. The World Group, the World Mercenary Group. This was their mercenary group's name. What they promised was the entire world. The youngsters' eyes sparkled as they clenched their fists and raised their arms up high, shouting excitedly, "The World Mercenary Group! The World Mercenary Group! Our world!" The deafening roar was filled with passion that infected one's heart. The surrounding mercenaries couldn't help but followed along and shouted out this name. The corners of Long Yunzhan's mouth curled into a smile on his usually cold and indifferent face. He raised his pen and wrote, "The World Mercenary Group," in the name column. The world that Yiqing Luo promised. The world that belonged to them. After the mercenary group application form was filled, the registrar's information was stored in the Mercenary Association's memory stone. The memory stone flickered for a few times, and a palm-sized badge surfaced. The registrar used a secret technique to draw on the badge twice before passing it over to Long Yunzhan. This badge represented the World Mercenary Group's symbol. The badge was worn by the group leader. This badge could be used to set up the vice group leader, law enforcement group leader, finance group leader, etc. Once it was set up, the badge would produce a badge which represented the setup position. The newly established mercenary group was an ordinary mercenary group, and the maximum number of people could only accommodate 100 people. Because of that, this group leader badge could at most produce 100 member badges, which included various positions. If a mercenary group wanted to be promoted to a bronze mercenary group, they would have to accept a mission, obtain mercenary group honor points, and then apply to the registrar for an upgrade. It was said that there were too many restrictions and regulations in a mercenary group. However, becoming a mercenary group was much more convenient than forming your own team and traveling around. The reason why Yiqing Luo chose to form a mercenary group from Devil classes students was because of convenience. With the badge, as long as they didn't leave Three Springs City, they could communicate with the mercenary group at any time. It was also commonly known as 1,000-mile sound transmission. However, conversing required strong mental power and profound energy. Moreover, when a mercenary group accepted a mission, they could obtain detailed information about the mission. For example, the mission location, difficulty, and the general situation of the mission would be clearly marked. This way, Long Yunzhan only needed to consider the strength of the team and choose whether to accept the mission or not. At the very least, it was better than leading a group of people blindly out for experiential training. If the place they went for experiential training exceeded their expectations, their lives would be in danger. Moreover, after the mercenary group completed the mission, they would receive a generous reward from the person who issued the mission. These rewards weren't just money. There would also be many rare treasures, medicinal herbs, and pills. In short, there would definitely be rewards corresponding to the difficulty of the mission. Chapter 471. The World Group? Not bad, a good name. And Mohan Shang clapped his hands and praised. This world, this young patriarch is also interested. Do you want to count this young patriarch in? Everyone was stunned by his words. The dignified young master of the mercenary guild wanted to join an unknown mercenary group made up of a bunch of brats? Could it be that he was completely infected by the passion of these youths? If Mohan Shang really joined this world mercenary group, then this mercenary group would be incredible. He could do whatever he wanted in the mercenary guild. At this moment, Yuchi Peng and the others who were standing by the side had ashen faces, as though they were about to explode. Mohan Shang's intervention had already caused the Iron Blood Warriors to completely lose their face. Even now, their faces were still burning with pain. Mohan Shang actually wanted to join the mercenary group established by those youngsters? What kind of F*** luck did these little bitches have? If it was any other mercenary group, Once they heard that the young master of the mercenary guild wanted to join their group, they would be overjoyed and welcome the young master to join. However, the young mercenaries who had won the first prize did not have the slightest bit of excitement on their faces. Yiqing Luo's eyes narrowed slightly as her slender brows creased, as she scrutinized Mo Hanshang. From the moment this person appeared, he stood on their side and stood up for her without any reason. Yiqing Luo didn't believe that it was because Mo Hanshang couldn't stand seeing people doing tricks in the mercenary association or any other simple reason like that. No one will be good to you for no reason. This so-called good was a mixture of motives and benefits, especially strangers. Yiqing Luo raised her eyes slightly. Give me a reason. The surrounding mercenaries were about to vomit blood. Damn it. Young Master Mo joining their mercenary group was like gold falling from the sky and smashing in front of them. What reason was there to ask? Directly put the badge on young Master Mo. Their inner roars didn't affect Yiqing Luo at all. As the group leader, Long Yunjian, with a pair of azure blue eyes, stared at Mo Hanshang indifferently, as though he was waiting for his reply. I was there too. I saw everything. Mo Hanshang's handsome brows twitched. The smile on his handsome face was very clean. Your way of doing things suits my taste. He saw everything? Did he see them fighting the predators? All right, there's no problem in letting you join the world group. Yiqing Luo tilted her head and raised a finger. But because of your young patriarch Mo's identity, you must promise us a condition. What condition? After joining the world group, you will be an ordinary member of the world group. Mo Hanshang joining the world group was beneficial to the world group. Moreover, he was wholeheartedly trying to help her and had automatically raised the request to join the world group, so by right, Yiqing Luo should agree to it. However, the ugly words had to be said first. If Mo Hanshang were to make use of his mercenary association's young master's name to disrupt the world group's order, then she would absolutely not fear this young master's identity. When he made his move, he would definitely not hold back. This condition made the surrounding mercenaries envious and jealous, but at the same time, they couldn't help but want to strangle Yiqing Luo to death. All of them sighed helplessly. Children were still children. Establishing a mercenary group was just for fun. Such a good opportunity was presented to him, but he didn't know how to grasp it and even wanted to negotiate with young Master Mo. If they were able to invite young Patriarch Mo into their own group, even if they were to give him the position of vice group leader, they would be willing. Just as everyone was sighing, they heard Mo Hanshang, who had an arrogant look when facing Yuchi Peng earlier, chuckling as he spat out 3 words, "No problem." Everyone, what the heck? Chapter 472. After registering the mercenary group, Mo Hanshang invited them to use the Mercenary Association's guest hall to rest. The conference hall was large enough to accommodate about 400 people. Benches were arranged in rows around the room. The 60 or so youths found a place to sit. A dozen attendants came over with teacups and poured a cup of tea for everyone. Long Yunjian took the commander's medal and split it into a vice commander's medal and an executive commander's medal. The rest were all member badges. After this vice group leader badge was taken out, the youngster's vision immediately shot towards Yiqing Luo. The mercenary group was suggested by Yiqing Luo, and ever since she joined the devil class, many principles were taught by Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo's kindness towards them was something that they could all see. Vice leader Yiqing Luo was the most suitable candidate. Xiao Jin, who was seated opposite Yiqing Luo, hooked Yin Xiao Yi's shoulder with one hand as he shook his head and wailed, sighed, "This bunch of little brats. When Qing Luo wasn't around, they treated me like a treasure. But after Qing Luo came, I'm just a blade of grass. Who asked you to be ugly?" Yin Xiao Yi rolled her eyes and slapped the hand on her shoulder. "Take it away. We're all men. What's wrong with the shoulder?" Xiao Jin felt the pain on the back of his hand. He covered his hand and retracted it. "You like a girl. No wonder you also became a blade of grass. You're the F*** King's sissy. I'm a woman to begin with. Who's a man with you?" Yin Xiao, he stood up abruptly and slapped Xiao Jin's face that wasn't considered handsome. Xiao Jin stood up from the chair in shock, one hand covering his face while the other supporting himself on the chair in front of him. With a flip, he leaped over the long bench and rushed towards Long Yinjian. "Look at you, how are you a woman? Boss, save me." The two's antics had livened up the atmosphere in the hall. The youngsters' faces were filled with radiant smiles as their gazes wandered between Yiqing Luo and Long Yinjian. In his heart, he was both excited and nervous. He had his own team, his own mercenary group, and his own belonging. However, at the same time, they were nervous. He was worried that he wasn't strong enough, worried that he would drag down the entire team. Sitting on the bench and looking at the member medals piled up on the table, they became more and more nervous. Xiao Jin and Yin Xiao Yi's banter relaxed the moods of these youths considerably. The position of vice commander is too important. With my personality, I can't take it. Yiqing Luo pushed the vice group leader badge towards Long Yunjian's direction. "I'll be a small member, pass the vice group leader badge to Jin Zi." Don't. If you hand it over to me, this bunch of brats will definitely kill me." Xiao Jin waved his hand. "Just take it. I'm actually quite interested in this executive captain position." His eyes were sharp and his hands were fast. He directly reached out and took the medal of the executive commander in his hand. F***CK. "That's mine." Yin Xiao Yi's eyes narrowed, and she immediately rushed towards Xiao Jin to snatch the executive regiment commander's medal. Xiao Jin waved the medal in his hand at her, the corners of his mouth hooking up in a proud smile as he put the medal on his chest. The medal suddenly emitted a blue light. In an instant, the light had already covered Xiao Jin. "Slut Jin." Yin Xiao, he was so angry that she gritted her teeth. After the medal was put on his chest, this medal was bound to Xiao Jin. Chapter 473. F***CK. Scumbag Jin was indeed a scumbag. Yiqing Luo looked at this pair of quarrelsome lovers as she couldn't help but laughed. "Xiao Yi, why don't I give you the assistant group leader's badge? In this way, you will be his immediate boss." "Qing Luo, you can't do this," Xiao Jin exclaimed. Yin Xiao Yi stared at Xiao Jin before retracting her vision and looking at Yiqing Luo. She shook her head. "In order to be his top boss, we have to sacrifice ourselves. It's really not worth it. This kind of arduous task, it's better to leave it to you." In the end, the vice group leader's badge still landed in Yiqing Luo's hands. Right from the start, Yiqing Luo had only intended to be a small member in the mercenary group. After all, her personality was indeed not suitable for the position of vice leader. Xiao Jin and Yin Xiao, you were at least members of the Devil class's class committee. After managing the Devil class for such a long time, they should be the most suitable candidates. "Take it." A clear and cold voice suddenly entered his ears. Long Yinjian, who was by her side, stared at Yiqing Luo indifferently. "Everyone wishes for you to be the vice group leader, and you have enough qualifications to be the vice group leader, so there's nothing suitable or not suitable about it." Yiqing Luo was just about to speak when her waist suddenly tightened, and she had already been pulled into D.Mo Xian's arms. Her face bumped into D.Mo Xian's broad chest. D.Mo Xian's other hand covered the back of her head. "Lil Luo, no matter if it's a member or vice group leader, every single action of yours will represent the world group, and this is something that cannot be avoided." The man's clear voice was as mellow as fine wine. That word by word actually expressed all the worries in Yiqing Luo's heart. "After being together for so long, I believe your brothers must have some understanding of your personality. Since they chose you, it means that they trust you. You are a team, a mercenary team." D.Mo Xian's fingers gently caressed Yiqing Luo's fine black hair. His actions were gentle and tender. "No matter what you want to do in future, they will follow you. Isn't that so?" "Yes." The 60 or so youths who were seated stood up one after another, their faces filled with determination. "No matter what happens, we will always be a team." Somewhere in Yiqing Luo's heart seemed to have been struck by something as it gradually softened. Her eyes were filled with tears. Her long, curly eyelashes trembled slightly, bringing out a drop of crystal-clear water. She pursed her lips tightly. After a long while, she reached out her hand and held the medal that symbolized her position as the vice regiment commander in her hand. Since everyone trusts me so much, then I shall not be unreasonable. Yiqing Luo's lips curled into a faint smile. Her slender fingers curled up the medal in her palm one by one. It was as if he wanted to brand the medal into his flesh and blood. When the youths saw that she accepted, they instantly let out a wave of cheers. Clear and sonorous voices resounded in the air above the living room. Vice Commander! Vice Commander! Vice Commander! The shouts gradually died down. Long Yinzhan looked down at the youths in uniform, and an extremely faint smile gradually appeared on his face. After some time, he retracted his vision and returned to the main topic. Qing Luo, right from the start, you've been eyeing the Iron Blood Warriors mission? Xiao Jin was still fooling around with Yin Xiao when he heard about the mission. As for that mission, probably all the youths in the world group would want to know what it was. Based on Yiqing Luo's character, she actually only asked for a mission which the other party didn't know about and let them off. Although this had already made the other party lose face, and the ones who gained the advantage were them. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.